Good evening and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment. It is Thursday, June the 6th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. I will ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Committee Member Froese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number 4, I will declare.
First application, number 8. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. Everyone's had opportunity to read them, and peruse them. So I'll need a mover and a seconder for the following, that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held May the 16th, 2024 be approved as presented. Committee Member Weiser. Committee Member Chilcott. All in favor? Carried. Application, the first application for minor variance application A 0824 55091, 55111, and 55121 Jackson Line, Dan Froese Farms, Inc. The purpose of this variance is to permit the conversion of an existing permanent house barn of 80 square meters, that's 861.113 square feet, in gross floor area to a supplementary farm dwelling to accommodate one seasonal farm laborer in accordance with section 2.1.10.1 of the Bayham official plan. The subject property is one parcel consisting of 3 municipal addresses located at 55091, 55111, and 55121 Jackson Line, south side, west of Plank Road. The effect of this variance will be to permit a supplementary farm dwelling on the subject property to accommodate one seasonal farm laborer in the existing permanent house barn for the time period between March 1st and November 30th. At this point, we will entertain the staff presentation, report DS 4224 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding minor variance A 0824 Dan Froese Farms, Inc. And anyone interested in speaking to this, please sign in at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report before you and the committee is in regards to a minor variance application submitted by Agent Kimberly Mulder on behalf of Dan Froese Farms, Inc. for one parcel located on Jackson Line. Purpose of the variance has been expressed already, but briefly, it's a conversion of an existing permanent house barn for the use as a supplementary farm dwelling to accommodate one seasonal farm laborer. The effect of the variance will be to permit the supplementary farm dwelling on the subject property for one seasonal farm laborer for a time period between March 1st and November 30th. Dan Froese Farms, Inc. is seeking permission to have a supplementary farm dwelling on the farm to house seasonal farm labor during the spring, summer, and fall months to assist with farm operations for vegetable and cash crops. The owner has applied for the use for the time period March 1st to November 30 in any calendar year. Under normal approvals, we've done April 1st to November 30. He's asking for an extra month. From the building department perspective, the owner will have to apply for a change of use permit, as well as at the building permit application stage, the applicant will be required to demonstrate that the proposed supplementary farm dwelling will have adequate quantity and quality of drinking water and adequate sanitary sewage facilities or a septic system. Servicing requirements will also be included in the follow-up development agreement. And in saying that, the development agreement does come back to council for consideration at a future date. The Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied the application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. The planner's memorandum dated May 29th, 2024 outlines the full analysis of the 4 tests and the variances required for compliance. Staff and planner concur the application meets the criteria, and we do recommend granting the minor variance to permit the conversion to allow for the supplementary farm dwelling. And we do also agree with and concur that the time period of March 1st to November 30th is reasonable, given the nature of the farm operation. So subject to the owner entering into a development agreement with the municipality, there are certain clauses and conditions that will be included. It would be established for one seasonal worker. They would be removing the supplementary accommodation nature of the building from the property no more than 2 years after the existing farm operation has ceased. That the buildings and site be maintained in accordance with all bylaws. That the established seasonal time period would be in the agreement, again, March 1st to November 30. He will have to ensure that there's sufficient on-site capacity for potable drinking water. The Southwestern Public Health Inspector does get involved for supplementary dwellings. We'll have to ensure there's sufficient septic system capacity and ensure that there's a building permit obtained so that the structure is in accordance to the Ontario Building Code. So I leave the report with you, Mr. Chair, for any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Bard. At this point, I'll ask for any presentations by the applicant. If you wish to make a presentation, now's the time. Of course, you can sign in at the podium, please.
You, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity. Just want to talk a little bit about Bayham, beautiful little Bayham. We produce a lot of food here. There cucumbers and peppers alone. We produce grade, processed, ship more than $20 million worth of cucumbers and peppers alone. A little portion of that gets grown in Malahide and a little portion in Norfolk, but majority of it gets grown here, processed here, and shipped here. So to be able to have this opportunity to have a surplus farm dwelling is invaluable, not only to my operation, but to all the farmers in Bayham.
Thank you for that. Section 7, public submissions. I see we have public comments received on May the 31st, 2024 from Mr. Robert Gregson. Do you wish to make some comments, Bob? Would you please sign in at the podium?
Hi, my name is Bob Gregson. I've lived in Jackson Hyde for 80 years, so I know the country pretty well. I have no real objections to Dan. What I'd like to know is exactly what bylaws we are following now in Bayham Township concerning all these houses. I have 3 grandsons who would like to farm someday. And I'd like to know if I can bring, we own 7 farms on Bayham Town or on Jackson Line. And I'd like to know what I have to do to get permission to have a grandson living on one of those farms. I know that last winter, there were, I think, 5, 6 farms on Jackson Line that had residents in them all year long that were there for the summer working period. But when there was summer work, laborers went home, someone else moved into some 5 or 6 of those farms. And I didn't know whether this was legal or not. They're old houses that have been, well, I guess maintained for summer labor, but I just like to know what exactly the right what bylaws we're following to allow more houses with people living in them all year long on Jackson Line. Dan's is just across the road from me. I have no problem with Dan in his place. It's well kept. The house that the place we're moving into is well kept. But he's just one more person on our road that has another additional living quarters on it. And I'd like to know what the real bylaws we have in this township are for them, because I have 7 farms and I would like one of my grandsons to be able to live there. I guess that's what I'm here more for, is just some questions and answers. than anything, so,
All right, Bob. No, thank you very much for those comments. In some ways, it's illustrative of your concerns, but, I'm not sure that they relate directly to the application.
well, it's just that we're adding another house there that's going to have residences supposedly just for the summer.
Yeah, supplementary season.
But not through the winter, but
Right.
like I say, last year we had 5 other houses that I thought were that way that went.
All right.
And do we have enforcement on this or not? And I don't know, how do I find out if those houses were legally having people in them all year?
I
And one of the other things I was concerned about, one of those houses had a house there that had vehicles there. One of those vehicles went down the Jackson line, off the road, into the fence and the cemetery. That's never been fixed. And that happened last winter. And I have no, I mean, I don't know what I can do to have that fence fixed.
All right, if you,
So-
has that been reported into, staff as a work order?
Well,
put in
I'm
place?
sure it's been, if it has been, I know to the road superintendent and so on.
Okay,
But beyond that, I don't know where it's gone, but that's just one of the problems. We have more houses and that Jackson line, we've got to be busy in 19 highway now.
okay.
And that's just what, I'm not used to that, and that's not what I had planned on for the rest of my life. But I would like to have an answer as to what I can do to get my grandson on a farm that I have. And to do it legally, so. We've tore down, I guess, what, 5 or 6 houses in my lifetime on the Jackson line, old houses that were not fit to be whatever, and I didn't
Right.
want a subdivision down there, so I
Okay.
just tore down houses, so.
Well, thank you for that. Again, Bob, I think the best way to find out what's available for housing on your farms, I would recommend you have a conversation with our planning coordinator. Just identify which
Margaret?
parcels, talk with Marg, that's one. Secondly, if you've got some issues with, perhaps, year-round residential taking place on seasonal or supplementary dwellings, report it to the office. You know, it's complaint driven. If we find out, they'll deal with it.
I
Okay,
mean, since Bonneville bought all that property there, that's, right, we don't know anything more that goes
Okay.
on down there, and that's, there's no way to find out either. You ask questions, but you don't get answers, so. But that's been the biggest problem, because they bought all the land on the north side of the Jackson line from highway all the way to the other end of it, so.
well, understood, but same thing, if the office doesn't know about it, it's hard to deal with it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to address this file? Okay, let's move on then to committee questions and discussion. Does anyone from the committee have any questions or discussion on this particular application? All right. Seeing none, then are we ready for the decision? Motion reads that the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 4224 regarding the Dan Frost Farms, Inc. minor variance be received. And that the Committee of Adjustments considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45(1)(1) of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A 0824 submitted by Dan Frost Farms, Inc. pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003. Section 5.2 permitted uses to permit the conversion of a one-story permanent house barn of 80 square meters, 861.11 square feet in gross farm floor area to a supplementary farm dwelling to accommodate one seasonal farm laborer for the time period between March 1st and November 30th, subject to the owner entering into an agreement with the municipality Condition A, development agreement to be executed within 6 months of the minor variance approval. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? I see committee member Chilcott, sorry. Didn't mean to swear at you. And committee member Emerson, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Shall we move on then with minor variance application B, which would be application A 0924 at 5270 Plank Road, Wheeler. Purpose of this variance is to grant relief from the zoning bylaw regulations for the development of an additional residential unit within a detached accessory building on the subject property located at 5270 Plank Road, east side, south of Tunnel Line. Section 4.2C to permit an accessory building in the front yard. Section 4.2D to prevent an accessory building closer to the street than the main building. And section 4.2F permit an accessory building that is 41% of the principal farm dwelling, whereas 25% is required for the accessory use buildings accessory to the principal farm dwellings. The effect of this variance is to permit an ARU within an accessory building located in the front yard and closer to the street than the main building, as well as an increased percent coverage of an accessory building accessory to a principal farm dwelling on the subject property. There's a lot of accessories there, Mark. I'll get you to explain that under the staff presentation, report DS 4324 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding minor variance A 0924 Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report is before you. The application was submitted by Agent Tony Wall on behalf of Dan Wheeler, owner of the subject property, looking for a minor variance for property at 5270 Plank Road. The purpose and effect has already been read. I won't revisit that, but we'll jump into discussion. The Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied with the application that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance. The planner's memorandum attached to the report dated May 29, 2024, outlines the full analysis of the 4 tests. At the building permit application stage, the applicant will be required to demonstrate that the proposed ARU will connect to the public water supply system and private on-site sewage system, demonstrating that the on-site servicing has sufficient capacity for the ARU. Staff and planner concur the application meets the criteria to permit the placement of an ARU at 5270 Plank Road and recommend granting a minor variance to the specific sections of zoning bylaw Z 456, 2003, section 4, as listed in the recommendation and has already been read by the chair. I will leave it with you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that presentation, Mark. Is the applicant or agent here this evening, and do they wish to make a presentation? If so, please come to the podium and sign in.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here on behalf of Daniel Wheeler, just in regards to the application for an ARU. The request, obviously, we've heard previously just in regards to cost of living seems to be going up, not going down. Rent is not going down either. And Mr. Wheeler is looking to put this ARU on this 11-acre farm. The intent and location, although it's going to be in front of the existing building, but to the north, the neighbor's property, we're trying to maintain that sight line so that that building and the neighbor's front house is somewhat in line. Again, the building is just intended, it's not very big, but it's intended to help out family. And we're hoping that we will pass this.
Okay, thank you very much. Public submissions. Anyone from the public wishing to speak?
Me?
Please sign in, George.
Yes, Mayor. George Russo here. I live across the street from this proposal. I unfortunately just received this information on Saturday. A little late in order for me to act on this earlier. I'm wondering why it took so long for me to get it since I'm right across the street. And I'm looking at this map here and it's very confusing because all I got is it looks like a square and a triangle, so it doesn't show the house where it's going. Is it going on Plank Road, Tunnel Line? If it's going on Plank Road, that's a very bad area right there. The traffic there is like a speedway. Closer houses there, I don't know, but anyways, like I said, I was just notified of this and it seems like nobody even lives there. There's a dog kennel there, used to be a cat kennel. Maybe some other things, but I never see the people that do live there, so if they're trying to make more money, must be a better way. Why couldn't they sever it? I think would be a better way of doing things. But I think there has to be more discussion. I think a lot of people around here don't even know about these things. Like how many people plan on moving in on this? Is there going to be a basement? I don't even know where it's going. If it's going to be by my house that's like about a quarter mile down the road. That's a long way to dig a trench. So that's where I just stand on it. I was just depressed that I never got informed about this earlier. That's all.
Okay, thank you for those comments, George. Appreciate it.
And I hope there's more literature and more talk other than just a decision tonight.
Mhm.
That's all.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to make a public presentation? Okay, opening it up to committee questions and discussion. Any questions? I'll open it up. Marg, is there any information, is there intended to be a basement on this facility? We've heard Mr. Wall suggest that it was going to be in line with the other buildings so that it didn't include sight lines. Anything else that you might be able to add?
Mr. Chair, I would ask Tony Wall to answer that. He is the designer and has been working with the landowner.
Okay. Any additional information, Tony, for us? Yes.
Again, water table's a bit high on that
Yeah.
property, so we do require to put a frost wall in the ground, so we need to have 4 feet.
Mhm.
But we figured at that point, we do have a basement. It is basically an existing house that was in Port Burwell.
Yep.
Instead of being moved into a landfill and destroyed, it was utilized. But it's a 1-bedroom house. It's pretty small. If I recall, it's 19 and a half feet by 26 feet, so it's not very big. It's the open concept kitchen, living, dining room with a bathroom and a very small office, but the intent was to put the bedroom down in the basement with an egress window and everything else to comply. But it will be out of the ground a little bit just so that we can get windows in there just to meet bedroom requirements.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions from any committee member? Committee member Chokov.
Thank you. Just a question regarding the positioning of the new house. If it's on Highway 19 or Plank Road, is it going to have difficulty getting out the laneway and being able to see around either house that's on the sides of it?
The existing laneway will still be reused. So the current driveway is just going to be branched off to the side. Again, I don't know, with the site plan itself, it's 11 acres that the house is orientated in the back with the barns in the back. There is a small patch, I'm not sure how big it is, roughly a quarter acre, maybe close to half an acre of grass that just can't be farmed. And it's just off the laneway. So the intent is that the laneway would be shared with the principal dwelling as well as the ARU, and then it would just veer off to the side so that they could park on the side.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further from the committee? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wall. Ready for the decision? That the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 4324 regarding the Wheeler minor variance be received, and that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45(1)(1) of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A 0924 submitted by Dan Wheeler pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from the municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw number Z 456, 2003, section 4 specifically. Section 4.2C to permit an accessory building ARU in the front yard. Section 4.2D to permit an accessory building ARU closer to the street than the main building. And section 4.2F to permit an accessory building ARU that is 41% of the principal farm dwelling, whereas 25% is required for accessory use buildings accessory to the principal farm dwellings. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Committee member Rose will move. Do we have a seconder? Committee member Chilcott. All in favor? Hands up, please. Thank you. That's carried. Item C, minor variance application A 1024 at 53777 Talbot Line, Roy Shriver Farms Limited. Purpose of this variance is to permit a minimum distance separation, MDS 2 setback of 18.5 meters from the provincial highway road allowance to a proposed barn expansion. Whereas section 4.56.2 of the zoning bylaw requires 36 meters. The subject lands are located at 53777 Talbot Line, south side and west of Cloden Road. The effect of this variance is to reduce the MDS 2 setback from the provincial highway road allowance to the proposed expansion of an existing barn for the current dairy farm operations on the subject property. At this point, we will entertain staff report DS 4424 by Margaret Underhill, Secretary Treasurer, regarding the minor variance A 1024 Roy Shriver Farms Limited. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roy Shriver Farms Limited has submitted the minor variance application for the property at 53777 Talbot Line. Because Mr. Shriver wishes to expand on an existing barn, put an addition on to provide needs of water and a manure system for his dairy farm operation. As we've heard, the effect of the variance is to reduce the MDS 2 setback from the provincial highway road allowance to the proposed expansion of the existing barn for the dairy farm operation. The Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied, again, that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance. The planner's memorandum dated May 30th, 2024 outlines the full analysis of the 4 tests. Staff and planner concur the application meets the criteria and recommend the granting of the variance to permit an MDS 2 setback of 18.5 meters from the Provincial Highway 3 Talbot Line road allowance to a proposed barn expansion, whereas 36 meters is required. You see in the package that the MTO has granted approval, so they have been consulted and have been working with Mr. Shriver, that they are in agreement with the setback. So the minor variance is before you for consideration.
Thank you for that report, Mark. Is anyone from the applicant or agent present who wishes to make a presentation? I don't want to, but. Well, if you do, please sign in and this is your
I
opportunity.
don't like this part, but yeah, we'll say something. Okay, so I started talking.
Yeah, may want to tip that up a little bit so they can hear you online.
Okay, yeah, so wanted to, not a big fan of going closer to the road. I don't really like people stopping in front and makes me nervous once in a while with, well, animal rights activists and whatnot. But with the way less cattle movement and whatnot, to keep it in the same facility as the other young animals is the idea. Yeah, it's always an additional risk. For a manure system, it makes more sense to keep everything straight. Well, it's basically the only way it would work, to keep everything straight and in line in the existing facility, because otherwise it just doesn't work. And I have enough issues in the day and really don't need more. Yeah, so Yeah, I think just tried to follow what I needed to, and, any additional questions, I'll answer them, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any public submissions? Does anyone wish to address this file?
And just to note, no other publication or public comments have been received, so.
Thank you for that. Committee questions, discussion, concerns? I am noting none, which brings us to the decision. That the Committee of Adjustment Secretary Treasurer's Report DS 4424 regarding the Roy Schreiber Farms Limited minor variance be received. And that the Committee of Adjustment considered all written and oral submissions received on this application, the effect of which helped the committee to make an informed decision. And whereas the committee agrees that the proposed variance as presented meets section 45(1)(1) of the Planning Act and is considered minor. Therefore, application A 1024 submitted by Roy Schreiber Farms Limited pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act for a minor variance is granted to allow relief from the Municipality of Bayham zoning bylaw Z 456/2003, section 4.656.2, to permit an MDS 2 setback of 18.5 meters from the provincial highway 3 Talbot line road allowance to a proposed barn expansion, whereas 36 meters is required. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Committee member Emerson will move. Committee member Weisler will second. Really missing that tooth, you know? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to the adjournment motion that the Committee of Adjustment meeting for consideration of minor variance applications A 0824, A 0924, and A 1024 be adjourned at 7:02 p.m. And that in accordance with the current regulations of the Planning Act, notices of decision be circulated by the Secretary Treasurer accordingly. Mover and seconder, please. Committee member Chilcott and committee member Weiser. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're adjourned. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the regular council meeting of the municipality of Bayham. It is Thursday, June the 6th, 2024, 7 p.m. Excuse me, it is 7:03 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. I'll remind council members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Councilor Froese.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. 11.2A.
Thank you. Any other disclosures? Let's move on with the review of items not listed on the agenda while this computer reboots.
None tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Announcements this evening. Don't be shy. Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize because I have a few announcements, so I'm going to talk for a few minutes if that's okay. Just one past announcement. Congratulations to the Edison Fest committee for their wonderful execution of Edison Fest this last weekend. We had a great turnout. It was a really, really great day and we had lots of fun, and congratulations to the mayor again with he's sporting his skunk. You can ask him about that later. And we did have, due to, in the interest of weather, we did postpone the blue flag raising ceremony. So Bayham was awarded once again the blue flag status for our municipal beach. So we're very excited about that. And we are having a flag raising ceremony this Saturday, June the 8th, and that'll be held down at the municipal beach at 1 o'clock. So I would encourage everyone to come and join us. We'll have some refreshments and I'm sure there'll be some cool treats for everybody. And then as soon as that ceremony is over, I encourage everyone to head on over to the Port Burwell Marine Museum as they're having their season grand reopening. And that'll be at 2 o'clock. So make sure to go there and enjoy some of the festivities over there as well and see their new displays. We're really excited to see those. So looking forward to that. That's this Saturday, June the 8th. My next announcement is congratulations need to go out to our 4 new Bayham firefighters who graduated last night at the Elgin Middlesex Regional Fire School. So we're very proud of them. And I know Warden Ketchabah was there, and so it was an excellent evening. There were 61 recruits in total, both in and outside of Elgin County, so that graduated last night. So congratulations to all of the recruits, but especially to our 4 Bayham firefighters. We're happy to see them here in helping with our initiatives here. A little bit of a somber note, I'll finish off with my last announcement. Today marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And today we honor the brave Canadians, over 14,000 in total, that stormed Juno Beach. To this day, D-Day marks the largest naval, air, and land operation in history. 18,000 Allied paratroopers were dropped. 14,000 Allied air forces flew overhead. Nearly 7,000 naval vessels, including battleships, destroyers, minesweepers, escort, and assault craft, took part and were responsible for escorting and landing over 132,000 ground troops on the beaches in Normandy. My heartfelt respect and appreciation goes to the men and women who have sacrificed everything for country and freedom. And so today I just would like to say, may we never forget. Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for those comments. Any other announcements from council members? Okay, I have 2. For anyone who's looking for an easy way out on Father's Day, there's a breakfast on from 8 to 1 down to Masonic Hall in Vienna. It's usually the busiest day of the year for us, but we will work to accommodate you. So come along. There was some damage, property damage over the last couple of weekends. And I know that our Public Works Manager has more details on this, but essentially signage. Signs were run down, signs were destroyed, signs were missing. This constitutes about an $8,000 cost to the ratepayers of Bayham. This may, to those responsible, may seem like a lot of fun, but actually it's not. It's a safety issue. It's a cost issue. And it's something that really should not be tolerated. And I'm just putting it out there to let you know that this won't be acceptable. So that was my somber note. Okay, if there are no other announcements this evening, then did I hit it, Steve? Or you got something to add?
Yeah.
Please do.
One quick one. I wanted to stand before you as the manager of Public Works, inform council and the residents of Bayham that the municipality on June 21st will be losing one operator, Public Works operator. Happy to announce, and great on him, Kevin Bradfield. He's retiring after 30 years with our department. He's going to start a new chapter. Just as brief, so Kevin began in Port Burwell, working for the town of Port Burwell in 1994. Obviously transitioned with amalgamation into Bayham, and since then, he's been a dedicated, valued member of the Public Works team. Everyone's seen him around clearing roads, maintaining roads, Public Works, the facilities. He's contributed in just about everything with the municipality. So as Kevin prepares to step into the next phase of his life, I just wanted to express my gratitude towards him. And the 30 years of service is definitely a very valuable thing to get. It's hard seeing this all over the place anymore. It's a long time, and I congratulate him and his family, and hopefully if people want to join me and see him around in the summertime, just maybe give him a thank you and wish him on his way. And yeah, you can, chances are you'll see Kevin driving around in a Jeep with no top, with his dog in the passenger seat. So if you see him, that's him. So congratulations to him. I just wanted to let everyone know.
Thank you for that, Stephen. And yes, I would concur with your comments. If anybody happens to run into Kevin in the next little while, congratulate him on his long service and wish him well. Perhaps maybe council wants to extend a round of applause for this retirement, just to mark it. Okay, thank you for that. Now I think we've covered off announcements. Let's move on with this evening's presentation, and pleased to welcome Rob Foster from Grand Scott Ends, giving us an update on the 2023 consolidated financial statements. Good evening, Rob, and welcome.
Thank you.
I'm gonna bring them up on the screen. So just, I guess, yeah, we'll start with the statements and then we'll come back to the letter that was at the beginning of the agenda. So if you can go to our page 2, one more. Oh, a little one more yet. Thank you. So that's our, so the financial statements are obviously your financial statements. The auditor's report is our stamp on these financial statements. So what you're looking for is a clean or a non-qualified audit opinion, which is what we're able to deliver tonight. I will remind council that these are consolidated financial statements, so they do include your proportionate share of the water boards, cemeteries, those type of things. So there'll be a few things in there that that you don't have full control over, but that your share is included. So it is our opinion that the audited financial statements of the corporation of the municipality of Bayham, which comprise the consolidated statements of financial position as at December 31st, 2023, and the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus, consolidated statement of change in net financial assets, consolidated statement of remeasurement gains and losses, and consolidated statement of cash flows for the year then ended. And the notes to the consolidated financial statements include a summary of accounting policies. It's our opinion that these present fairly in all material respects the financial position as at December 31st in accordance with Canadian public accounting standards. I just have to read that. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that is our opinion. And these will be dated June 6th tonight if they're approved by council. So we can move to one more page, which is the balance sheet or statement of financial position. So again, as noted, this is consolidated. So we have the balances as at December 31st, 2023 with comparables for December 31st, 2022. Cash and investments. So we did see a change this year. We switched from the one fund investments to GICs. That was one difference year over year. And we did take a little bit more money out of the bank and put it into those longer or medium term, I guess we'll call it, investments. Taxes receivable. So we did have a small increase, a slight increase in the year over year collections, which I think is fairly consistent with what we're experiencing in other municipalities as well. Just with interest rates, the economy, that sort of thing, there is some slowing in payments. Not a concern at this point, but there is a slight slowdown. Accounts receivable, so that'd be all other receivables. That includes such things as your own water and sewer, as well as the proportionate share of the primary water board and secondary water boards. The debenture receivable that was financed with the Richmond project, as well as HST and a few other items coming up with the 921. The main difference year over year was there was some federal funding, about $175,000 last year, that was also included in that balance that we didn't have this year. On the liability side, deferred revenue. So our Canadian building fund, we used more than what we had in the current year, about 230,000 more of what had been carried forward from previous years and projects, capital projects. And then our development charges were up about, the fund was up about 70,000 year over year. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So there's just your traditional trade payables, pretty consistent there year over year. We did have 3 or 4 larger projects on the go that were required security or grading deposits. So we're seeing that balance increasing as those projects are underway. No new debt taken on in the year. We did obviously pay down the principal requirements for the year from 4.6 down to 4.3. And that is coming due in March of 2025. Obviously, you're working very diligently to be able to dispose of that debt on renewal. So our overall net financial assets, we saw almost $1 million increase year over year. So that's a very positive from the overall balance of the financial statements and for the municipality. Tangible capital assets. So we had $3.1 million of additions on the year and amortization of 2.0 or 2 million. So again, it's actually way back in 2009 now, but we started to recognize tangible capital assets on the financial statements, giving council some idea how much of your assets were being used up each year. I think the general theory was that you're hopefully putting into capital at least what it's depreciating. You were well above that. So we did have a number of projects that were taken on in the year, a number of road projects, as well as the Vienna water lines, giving us that total in additions for the year. So overall, our accumulated surplus going from 63 million up to 65. Again, the vast majority of that, and we'll see this in note 8, but the vast majority of that is invested in tangible capital assets. The next page is your statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So in this page, we have our budgeted numbers for the year. We have our actuals for 23 and our actuals for 22. So the budgeted, I will note, is adapted to what we call PSAB standards. Council would budget for a 0 balance, but we would remove any transfers to and from reserves, put in amortization expense. So we are taking in grants as well for what would be considered capital. So that is adjusted to a PSAB format if you're wondering why it's not coming to 0 at the end. When we look at revenues, extremely close on our budgeting to actual year over year, or budget to actual, I mean. We did note that we did have some loss on the disposal of those funds that we did have to recognize in the year. On the expense side, we did have a couple of items that were a little over budget and under general government, IT support, building and equipment repairs. We're making up the bulk of that. Transportation services, the drainage flows through that particular account, which isn't necessarily budgeted for because it tends to go in and recovered again, as well as fuel, gravel, all those type of expenditures that we did see some inflationary increases above what was expected. On the environmental services, we had on the garbage side of things, there wasn't as much recycling. There was more heavy waste that was disposed of, which is a more costly process in the year than what had been expected. Also under recreational and cultural services, again, building maintenance being one of the items over budget there. So overall, we were on a PSAB basis below on our surplus below what we had budgeted for. But at the same time, I think, again, compared to what we're seeing in other municipalities, BAM is definitely taking a very fiscal approach to their finances. And I think they should be congratulated on taking that approach and how you've done through the year. Our next page is our change in net financial assets. So we take the surplus for the year, we add back amortization, and deduct the acquisition of capital assets to give us our total. It's my electrifying presentation is messing with the electronics, I see. I don't generally have that problem, but happy I can do that for you. So we did have a positive increase in net assets of 851,000. So again, that is a positive from the financial statement standpoint. Our next page, this is a new requirement for PSAB to disclose any gains or losses that aren't recognized in the normal financial statements. At the end of the year, we didn't have any of those. We were able to clear those out through the year, so there is no unrecognized gains or losses carried forward in the financial statements. Our next page is a statement of cash flows. So this takes us from an accrual back to a cash basis. So we produced cash on the year of 4.3 million. Working capital requirements added or released another 200,000. So we had a total of 4.5 million to work with 3.1 into tangible capital assets. We did put some additional funds into investments. We also released some funds as well, and then repayment of our long-term debt. So overall, we did have a net reduction in cash, but again, the bulk of that going into investments. Go to our next page, our first page of the notes. So we did highlight that there were a few changes in policies for PSAB standards. Very few of them had any impact on your particular financial statements, but we did need to disclose they were there. If we get to zip right along now, we could move to our note 3. So keep going a little bit more. Let's go. All right, so there's our investments. So we're just again disclosing what we were invested in the previous year versus the current year, and those are all at market now. It also has the breakdowns on receivables, both taxes and regular. Our next page is our continuity of all of those tangible capital assets, additions, any disposals, and our accumulated amortization. I'm not going to go in much more detail than that. The next page is the same thing for the previous year, so we can skip over that. Note 7 is just our long-term debt. So we do have the Ojibwe project portion as well as a portion from our consolidated water boards, giving us the total. Our next page is the accumulated surplus. So this is an important one to recognize. The municipality has transferred any surplus or deficit on the year into reserves. We do have our cemetery boards benefiting landowners, so that would be municipal drain type projects that would be recoverable. Benefiting landowners, similar, sorry, I already covered that. Invested in tangible capital assets. So I think that's the big one to keep in mind. We don't have this huge surplus that we could spend on day-to-day operations. We have close to 60 million tied up in tangible capital assets. And then we have our reserves and reserve funds rounding out the rest of those balances, less the long-term debt, giving us our total accumulated surplus of 65 million. I think those are the main things I wanted to cover in the financial statements. I'd be happy to take any questions on financial statements, and then we'll go to the other letter, which is our audit findings letter.
Thank you, Rob, for that presentation. Does any member of council have any questions for Mr. Foster at this point? I think the statements are fairly clear. It shows that things are progressing. It shows, I believe, that yes, there's a certain austerity going on within the municipality and has been for quite some time. Okay, Rob, let's carry on, please.
All right, thank you. So our other letter that we include, so this is a kind of our stamp on the financial statements. Our audited findings letter, or auditor's findings letter, is basically our stamp on management and the internal controls that are in place in the municipality. So I think, again, very positive report. We didn't have any issues with preparation time. We didn't have any issues with not wanting to make adjustments if we had any, which we normally don't in this particular case. No issues with any of the controls. Very, very positive stamp on both the staff, especially Lauren. Can't say enough about how lucky this municipality is to have a consistent treasurer. A lot of the municipalities in Elgin County are not experiencing that same, I won't call it a luxury, but that same experience. I think he's been very helpful with council, and from our standpoint, having a file prepared when he says he's going to have it filed for us, and having it in a very good, clean manner helps us with our audit for sure. And so we would like to thank Lauren for his help in preparing these financial statements. But it should also be looked at as our audit always does. It looks at the top down. So if we have a strong controls at the council level, it does fall its way down. So this isn't just positive for staff. It's also a reflection of council as well, that you looked for a strong environment and very fiscal, responsible controls in place. That's about all the positive things I can come up with. No, seriously, I am very pleased with what the BAM's been able to do with some of the positions that they've been put in.
Thank you for that, Rob. Does anyone have any questions for Rob at this point? Perhaps a little outside your wheelhouse, Rob, but any advice for the municipality going forward? You know where we're sitting, what's ahead of us.
Yeah, I think you do have to stay the road that you're on. Getting that debt out of the way is going to position you to be able to take advantage of potential capital project funding going forward. It'll also put you in a position for any surprises if there are any that jump out at you. I really do think that it is the fiscal choice that is good, the best thing you can do. It's very hard to do, and it's goes against what definitely our federal and our provincial governments are. They always feel they can just, if they need a little extra, they'll just download it to the municipalities, it seems, and you don't have that option. So that would be my advice, is just to continue on in the best manner as you can, in staying as tight and as responsible as you can with your finances.
Okay, thank you for those comments. And just as a furtherment, they have access to revenue tools that we do not have.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Printing press as well. Okay, any questions from council? Are you satisfied? Thank you, Rob. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion before us that reads that the presentation from Rob Foster, Graham Scott Inns, regarding the 2023 consolidated financial statements be received for information, and that the 2023 financial statements be adopted as presented, and that the chair be directed to sign the audit finding letters. Do we have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Weisler and Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We're going to skip ahead. We've got a public meeting at 7:30. So let's skip ahead to section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. They include the regular meeting of council held May the 16th, 2024, and the special meeting of council held May the 23rd, 2024. I trust all members have had opportunity to peruse those minutes. And if there are no errors or omissions, I would entertain a mover and seconder for the following: that the minutes from the regular meeting of council held May the 16th, 2024, and the minutes from the special meeting of council held May the 23rd, 2024, be approved as presented. Deputy Mayor Weiser will move. Councillor Froese will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Which brings us to 7:29. Let's recess from our regular agenda to go to pardon me? You need a minute? Hurry. We have a public meeting coming up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the statutory planning meeting. This evening, we have two applications to deal with, and I will call the meeting to order at 7:31 PM. Remind members of disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. See none noted. Dealing with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 1124, that's at 11681 Elliott Road, Pageant. The purpose of this bylaw is to rezone the subject property from rural residential RR zone to a site-specific rural residential zone in order to permit the following. To permit a maximum floor area of 269 square meters, that's 2,895.5 square feet for accessory buildings, whereas section 7:11(3) of the zoning bylaw requires 95 square meters or 1,022.57 square feet. And permit the existing shipping container for storage purposes, whereas section 4.85A of the zoning bylaw strictly prohibits shipping containers used for storage purposes in any residential zone. The subject property is known as 11681 Elliott Road, west side and north Talbot line. The effect of the bylaw is to facilitate a 128 square meter expansion of an existing 120 meter accessory building for personal storage and vehicles, and recognize the existing floor areas of the existing shed, that's 5.94 square meters, and the shipping container of 14.66 square meters on the subject property. Therefore, the cumulative maximum floor area for all existing and proposed accessory buildings is 296 square meters. At this point, I will call for any public participation. Anyone wishing to speak to this application, please come forth, sign at the podium and be heard.
I'll speak up.
Please sign in, please.
Hi there. My issue is that, is there any safeguards that are taking place with these expansions of zoning laws? My experience is these expanding zoning laws, the township has not looked at any tort laws that protect the neighbors. So sound, vibration from this extra sizage and new business. Yes, yes.
This is for the pageant.
This
This
is,
is not the one that you had corresponded about.
okay,
There's two meetings tonight.
all right.
The one that you corresponded about is coming up next.
Okay, so I'm not
not-
allowed to talk about this?
You can speak
It
to
is-
this one if you wish.
I would like
You-
this,
You can speak.
I'm
to the
aware.
pageant, but
I'm
it's
aware.
not this one that you.
I'm aware.
Okay,
Because
just want to make sure.
Okay. I'm aware. Because this issue is across the board when anytime there's an expansion, the neighbors are not considered. And I've lived with one of your expansions where council in 1974, right beside our home, had complained about noise from our business. So we actually had to move because the council said the noise was too much. But then your council in 2012 rezoned it, grandfathered in the business 3 meters from residential home. And now we're in Superior Court because of every tort law that was not considered by council. So I'm asking you, and I could go as far as begging you guys to be conscious about how you're expanding this and consider the neighbor beside them. because we've been devastated and it escalates into harassment and battery. When you guys have not considered that this entitlement to somebody does affect the neighbors. The welding business, also, there's a lot of fumes and a lot of noise during the night. So you guys are not I need conscious counsels, please, in this decision. I know I'm just stepping up to the, up, but this has affected my mother and I as a residential home beside a business or an expansion to a garage that was 400 square meters from a 75 feet barn. And it's been devastating. The entitlement has honestly escalated to battery. I had to have safeguard by surveillance cameras, by getting dogs. And I still got hit with a plank twice because the business does not. This is important. This is important, as you guys are saying that BAM is an opportunity for all of us, but you guys are taking the opportunity away from some of us to enjoy our property by the sounds, by the noise, by the tort laws that are broken. And you guys are not considering it. I just need consideration if there's a barn, is sufficient insulation. Hi, I'm here. Insulation, so that the neighbors don't hear. Because I'm far enough away, but I was far enough away from the business who does all the welding. And they open the doors and there's no country living. That's why I've lived here for 54 years. We need that opportunity. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this particular application? Marg, I don't see any correspondence. I assume there isn't any. Is there any other business before this application? Seeing none, let's go with the adjournment. That the zoning bylaw be considered at a future meeting of council, and that pursuant to Planning Act requirements, the public meeting for zoning application ZBA 1424 is now complete at 7:39 PM. Do we have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Chilcott, Deputy Mayor Weisler, all in favor? And that's carried. So let's move on with application B, and I will call this public meeting to order at 7:40 PM. Again, remind members of council of any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. For this public meeting, we're dealing with a proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 1624 at 56830 Talbot Line, Willowhawk Farms, Inc. The purpose of this bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject property from agricultural A1A zone to site-specific agricultural A1A XX zone to permit the following: an assembly hall to permit weddings as an on-farm diversified use ancillary to the principal agricultural use as an additional permitted use, and farm produce outlet, an existing permanent building structure with a maximum floor area of 372 square meters, that's 4,004.17 square feet, as an additional permitted use, whereas the zoning bylaw requires that a farm produce outlet to be in a temporary building structure. The subject property is known as 56830 Talbot Line, north side and east of Elliott Road. The effect of this bylaw is to allow for weddings as an on-farm diversified use ancillary to the principal agricultural use, which is currently not permitted in the zoning bylaw. Further, this bylaw will be to recognize the existing farm produce outlet for the sale of apples inside a portion of the existing barn where farm produce outlets are not intended to be permanent buildings. And at this point, we will call for any public participation Those who wish to address this file, please come forward, sign at the podium, and have your say. And please tell us who you are.
Evan Van Worker, so I'm the, I guess the owner or the resident of the property. I'd just like to make some comments, just additional information. I guess. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, if you're able to direct it at me at this time, or is that a different time?
Well, our turn comes up when the zoning bylaw comes forward. This is for public participation.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so please have your say.
I just want to, yeah, comment. So my wife and I bought the farm 4 years ago now. And ever since then, we've been continuously cleaning the farm up. It was previously a very large actual commercial orchard, up to 60 acres of trees. So it was a very large farm production. Since then, when we bought the farm, there was, I'd say, 9 to 13 acres of existing orchard that had been left overgrown, and a lot of the farm was left overgrown. And so since our purchasing the farm, we've been cleaning the farm up. We're down to about 8 acres of really good, productive apples, which we obviously sell on the farm, hence the farm produce outlet, which we've just built basically a lean-to on the side of our barn to be able to sell the apples out of. But a big thing we do on the farm is pick in the fall. So we've opened our farm up to the public. We allow people and families come and pick their own apples. We kind of do tours, so people can book private tours that come, and we'll give them a tour of the orchard, explain to everyone kind of about the varieties and different type of picking and stuff like that. So from there, we've really been trying to grow the farm into more of a destination farm. So our long-term goal would be to do like school tours and on-farm events and stuff like that, that make it more of an educational farm. So that's where the pavilion and everything's kind of come into play with that. And then obviously the weddings on that side of thing and other on-farm events would just be to basically substitute the income through the off-season. Apples is a very short season, which is hard to really maintain for a whole year when apples are only really September and October of the year. So we're just really trying to maximize the farm for the whole year. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. And thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else from the public?
Hi there. So I live around this orchard for the last 54 years. And again, my issue is noise bylaw and that tort. Now, my own personal experience, their last harvest, their music was heard from my mom's bedroom, which is behind my home, behind the front facing of their farm. And she had a hard time, and she's 78, and it was going till 4 o'clock, and it's usually harvest. So we usually let it go. We haven't complained. But there's also an issue if it's going on, I don't know how long, every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which would be a wedding time. That issue of noise is a big deal because, again, with personal experience from other businesses, the OPP takes 45 minutes to come all the way from their dispatch. That means they feel entitled, and I'm just talking about neighborhood, because my personal experience with Evan is he befriended Mike, my neighbor. And I actually, defamation upon my own character. And I struggled with telling this story to Bam Township with the business. And he's actually went online on my posts and posted. So I have that in Superior Court as one of my evidences. I personally let them know I have autism, dyslexia, tried to communicate with them. They put their excavator right in front of our home so we couldn't enjoy our front yard. It took me months to get them to move that. So why I'm trying to tell you that is there's not a moral string that you could ask somebody, morally, can you stay within the bylaw? That hasn't happened in this neighborhood. And they've actually ganged up on people that are voicing it. And we're voicing it because we want to sleep. My mom is 78. She has the right to enjoy her golden years where she actually paid her taxes for the last 54 years. So she deserves to enjoy her property without being constantly woken up. And as we voice this to the police, this business at the Orchard, Evan posted these posts on, just so I would, because I couldn't get the attention of Bam Township for the business beside me, I posted online and I posted the truth. And then I was ridiculed because I just wanted you guys to know that this is a big deal. And then also they need to be accountable again. If it's a pavilion, and last year I could hear every syllable on the speaker system. I could tell you what songs they played. Mamma Mia! Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And we're just trying to survive the business beside us. And then they were ganging up on me. And then I had to convince you guys that I am not a retard. Okay? I am a savant. I do have multiple disabilities. And I'm respectfully use that word because I am a retard in certain areas. Okay, that doesn't mean I like the derogatory form. And I've got signs how the derogatory form is set up on my fence line. And that's how a mob mentality started. So I had to take this to Superior Court. Please I'm here. Please don't make me take this business to Superior Court. I mean, I will if I have to. And I could do it. I'm having a lot of practice. But please consider your community. The seniors, the noise, the vibration, the people that will be at the wedding. Will they have some kind of security where people aren't coming to take a look at my guard dogs when they're drunk? Because they could just walk through the field. And there's an opening right in front of our house that they had personally opened, and it was closed for 50 years. They personally opened the fence line. So I know that somebody can walk through there if it's part of their wedding. So that's some of my biggest concerns is personal protection. Again, I have to take this battery seriously. It's not funny. It's not funny. And I have video evidence of this. So I've been doing the police will put it on me that I have to get video evidence of the battery, video evidence of the music for the police to do anything. And the police won't always come out. And they know that because it's a lower issue for the police. I know that because from my own experience, the music was going on till 4 o'clock. The police wouldn't show up until 4 o'clock sometimes. Because, I mean, respectfully, they're busy with an accident or whatever, something more serious, and I get that. But these businesses get that too. They get that too. So they just let it pass, and then we have to absorb the suffering. So if this is, bam, an opportunity for all of us, I would like the opportunity to sleep, to enjoy country living, because that's why my dad bought the property there. We would like them somehow Bayham Township to not just use the bylaw. The bylaw officers are worn out. I know, my own, I've called them a lot. And it's embarrassing. I stutter. I have clutter speech disorder. I'm begging the police and Bayham Township to give me accommodations. The only time Bayham Township took me seriously when my language speech pathologist described the noise, the music that was going on at January 1, 2002 till 4. I have video evidence. And nobody took me seriously with this, that this business was doing me harm, until the police said, you've got to do a private prosecution. And then I handed that piece of paper to the bylaw officer, and then, oh, she's not an idiot. She actually knows her torts. She actually knows what's going on. I struggle communicating with people. I get it. I get my disabilities. But honestly, please don't make us suffer this. Just put some safeguards, insulation, how they're going to set up the mic. Because that's a big deal. How are the people going, these drunk wedding people, who is a man, not going to sit on my front yard and call me a dirty fucking cunt.
Okay, we don't need that.
That actually happened.
I'm I'm sorry.
I
for that.
apologize, but those were the exact words. I'm just quoting.
Okay,
I'm not being angry. I'm just saying that happened. How do I stop that? Because we couldn't. I have a video of that. And that went on for 8 hours. I'm just saying it escalates. I needed to give you an example of how much it escalates if it's not taken seriously, because our community needs some boundaries. Thank you.
thank you for your comments. Anyone else? All right. We've already received the correspondence from Ms. Drews. Any other correspondence? Is there any other business before this application? Let's move with the adjournment then. That the zoning bylaw be considered at a future meeting of council, and that pursuant to the Planning Act requirements, the public meeting for zoning application ZBA 1624 is now complete at 7:55 PM. Need a mover and seconder, please. Councilor Chilcott and Deputy Mayor Weiser, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay. For a little over an hour and a half, I'm going to call a 10-minute break. Unmoved or unmuted? You're unmoved. Welcome back. We left off at section 6 delegations. My great pleasure to welcome Amanda Poops. If I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. With the Elgin County Library Branch Supervisor for Stratfordville and Port Burwell, your Bayham Libraries. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's Amanda Pops.
Sherry told me that, but I couldn't.
It's not really spelled the way you pronounce it. Thank you, Megan. Good evening, Mayor Ketchabah and members of council. So my name is Amanda Pops and I am the Library Branch Supervisor for your Bayham Libraries. I assumed the role of supervisor for the Stratfordville and Port Burwell branches in August 2022 upon the retirement of my predecessor, Susan Morrell. Although I currently live in London with my husband and 3 children, I called Bayham home throughout my childhood and early adulthood. I'm a graduate of Stratfordville Public School and East Elgin Secondary School, and personally understand the importance of public libraries in rural communities. So during my report this evening, I would like to provide some information on branch hours and staffing, and I'll highlight some annual branch performance statistics. I will discuss some programming, partnership, and outreach, and briefly outline the library's relationship with the municipality of Bayham. Lastly, I will list 2 goals that we are addressing as a library team in 2024. So the Port Burwell and Stratfordville branches are part of the 10-branch Elgin County Library System. Port Burwell is our smallest branch in the system and is open 4 days per week for a total of 17 hours. Stratfordville, by comparison, is one of the busiest branches in the county. We are open 5 days per week for a total of 40 hours. Our branches operate with a staff complement of 1 full-time library branch supervisor, that's me, 4 part-time library branch assistants, and 1 part-time library student page. The majority of our library staff are Bayham residents, which allows us to better meet the needs of our community. Moving on to some annual branch performance statistics. So this first graph illustrates the number of in-person visitors for all Elgin County Library branches. In Stratfordville for 2023, we had almost 25,000 in-person visitors, and this makes us one of the busiest branches in the system. We are only surpassed by Elmer and Port Stanley. So the average number of visitors is approximately 100 visitors per day. In Port Burwell for 2023, we had almost 5,000 library visitors. We are one of the smallest branches, and this is the lowest number of visitors across the county. But this is in keeping with trends from previous years. The average number of visitors is approximately 23 visitors per day. So branch circulation. So this graph illustrates the total number of physical items that are borrowed for the Bayham branches. In Stratfordville, we had almost 26,000 physical items borrowed last year, and that makes us the second highest circulation across the county, and we're surpassed only by the Elmer branch. In Port Burwell, we had just over 4,000 physical items borrowed last year, and this is the lowest circulation across the county. In terms of branch program attendance, so this graph illustrates the total number of participants in library programs at both branches. In 2023, we had 3,800 participants. This does signify complete recovery post-pandemic, and this is the highest level of program attendance ever recorded for the Stratfordville branch. A number of factors did contribute to this increase, including increasing the number of programs for families and larger groups, increasing the number of drop-in and passive programs offered in branch, and engaging in a greater number of outreach activities. So in Port Burwell for 2023, we had 328 program attendees. So we have yet to completely recover from the decline over the pandemic. For 2024, however, we have already reached over 300 program attendees in Port Burwell, and this will likely double our program attendance from the 2023 statistics. Lastly, this graph illustrates the number of programs offered at both branches. In Stratfordville, we offered 175 programs last year, so this is slightly lower than 2019 pre-pandemic numbers, but our team has really emphasized on increasing program attendance rather than increasing the total number of programs that we are offering. And in 2023 for Port Burwell, we offered 50 programs. So this is a significant decline over the number of programs offered pre-pandemic, but we are on track to increase this total number of programs offered for 2024. Moving on to programming, partnerships, and outreach. So one of the key directives of Elgin County Library is to meet the diverse needs of our communities by offering programs for all ages, facilitating partnerships with local organizations, and engaging in outreach with local groups and schools. So one of the programs I wanted to highlight for you this evening is the Homeschooling Community Group. This was a community-driven program that was requested by library users. It was designed to promote library services and collections and provide curriculum support for our local homeschooling families. It has also aided in bridging some connections with our Low German Mennonite community. This program has been one of the ways that our team has diversified our programming to be more inclusive as a library. The monthly pilot program had over 150 homeschoolers participate between October 2023 and April 2024, and we fully expect it to grow in popularity when it is reintroduced in the fall. The second program I wanted to highlight is our popular TD Summer Reading Club. So this is a countrywide program for local kids of all ages that emphasizes the fun of literacy throughout the summer. In 2023, we had over 130 participants at the Stratfordville branch, which included over 21 programs with 564 program attendees. At the Port Burwell branch, we had 21 participants and 13 programs with 132 attendees. And as a team, we have set a goal to reach 175 participants between both branches, which would be a 13% increase in participation. We are fortunate to receive generous community donations from local service groups like the Stratfordville Community Committee, Vienna Lions, Vienna Swans, and Erie Shores Wind Farm, and local businesses like Rose's Sandytown Variety, Valley Variety, and Clausen Auto Parts. Community donations allow us to increase the quality of the programs that we offer at a level that we normally would not be able to do so. Partnerships. So through partnerships with local organizations, we've been able to offer varied programs that serve our community. One of our key partnerships continues to be with the St. Thomas Elgin Early On, which provides support for programs targeted to children age 0-6 and their caregivers. In 2023, the weekly family storytime offered at the Stratfordville branch by Early On and library staff had 860 participants. Another key partnership has been with the Otter Valley Naturalists, who installed a pollinator garden adjacent to the Stratfordville branch with the support of the municipality. We are confident that the garden will allow for educational library programming for all ages. Our goal is to begin utilizing the garden for library programming in the fall. The Port Burwell Provincial Park is a new partnership that we established this year. So the park ambassador will be offering programs for all ages at both branches in July. Our hope is to grow this partnership in the coming years and take advantage of the unique opportunities offered by having a provincial park in our community. So lastly, outreach. So we really do like to focus on improving our relationship with our local public elementary schools. So in April, our team organized the annual Forrester Reading Program at both the Stratfordville and Port Burwell public schools. We visited multiple classrooms and invited students to vote on the top 10 nominated Canadian children's picture books. In total, we visited almost 200 students at both schools. The branches are also a popular destination for class visits. In 2023, the Stratfordville branch had over 270 students visit the library. These students are introduced to library services and collections, obtain library cards, and check out materials to take home. A number of Bridges classrooms, with the majority of students being from the Low German Mennonite community, have taken part in class visits. Additionally, this year we have established class visits from the Port Burwell School with approximately 75 student visits to the branch. Lastly, we strive to build community connections by attending events such as Watermelon Fest, Edison Fest, and Santa Claus Parade. So here are some pictures, and you might notice a familiar face from some of our more recent programs, including some of our summer programs and a guest performer for March break, and our teen paint night and our family puzzle contest. Okay, I'd like to touch briefly on some of our initiatives with the municipality. So firstly, I will mention the revised leasing framework that was established in 2022. The lease agreements include a Schedule C that outlines the cleaning services offered by the municipality and has helped us to navigate any issues with snow removal or general maintenance and cleaning schedules. And moving on to some neighbor complaints. So last year, there was an increase in the number of neighbor complaints at the Stratfordville branch due to some noise and garbage on weekends in the parking lot during library non-operational hours. Steve Adams and I were able to work together to navigate this issue and have addressed it by increasing the number of garbage receptacles, moving and chaining the picnic table, and implementing Monday morning yard checks to ensure the safety of the public and staff. Lastly, I would like to thank the municipality for your support for the pollinator garden. Invite you all to visit the Stratfordville branch to see the dedicated work done by the Otter Valley Naturalists. I will add that the library has submitted an application to the Inclusive Communities Grant Program, which would allow for the inclusion of a reading garden space in conjunction with the pollinator garden. I'd also like to thank the municipality for their support for the library lockers project, which has a tentative date for installation in the fall. So these are lockers that would allow Port Burwell patrons to access their holds when the branch is closed. And we're hopeful that this project
Let's just let you know.
just to let me know. I know. Okay. And we're hopeful that this will increase the branch circulation. So lastly, I will let you read for yourselves 2 of the goals that we're establishing as a team for 2024. And I will assure you that we're well underway for achieving these goals, particularly with improving engagement with our Port Burwell community. And I will leave you with my favorite library quote, and invite you all to visit a branch and chat with library staff and discover some of the programs and services that we offer and see for yourself the great work that your BAM library branches are doing in your community. I welcome any questions at this time and thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Amanda, for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions? If we back you up to page, it's 42 of the agenda, but it was the branch circulations. The physical circulations are down slightly. You've seen more and more electronic circulation taking its place.
Absolutely, and it's a trend across our system and a trend across libraries in general. Also, you know, post-pandemic recovery is still a factor. We had the network outage as well, but people are much more interested in audiobooks and ebooks, and those won't be reflected in our branch statistics.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on that. So there is no way to regulate how much the ebooks are being used. Is that something that you're looking at maybe trying to monitor in the future?
Those statistics are collected at the county level, so I could send you some statistics that way, but it's a county-wide, so it's not delineated by if you're a Port Burwell patron or a Stratfordville patron. It's just that it's card members overall.
It's a county. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any additional questions? Councilor Emerson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment. Thank you for the report. It's nice to see what you're doing for your community, and it's really much appreciated. And I think it's a really important asset in our municipality. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Anything else? Okay, Amanda, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Motion reads that the delegation from Amanda, I'm not even gonna try it, Pops, Elgin County Library Branch Supervisor regarding your BAM libraries be received for information. I need a mover and seconder, please. Councilor Emerson will move, Councilor Chilcott will second. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay. Skip down to section 8, motions and notice of motion. I don't believe we have anything this evening. Brings us to section 9, open forum. Pleased to welcome Wendy Carmichael to come forward and have her 2 minutes on section 13.2B.
Thank you.
Good evening, Wendy.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight or to speak. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for everyone that was there on Saturday at Edison Fest. I know you sort of lauded everybody that performed there, but I'd like to thank you because it made a good day. I'm here to speak about Ann Street really briefly before the dingos go off. But one thing that I was concerned about is the parking. That came up this weekend. Actually, it came up this week. There was a transport that had to park on Fulton Street. And it was because of the cycle. There's a cycle club that came through or a school. I think it's Rockland something school. And I think that before one looks at Ann Street and looking at developing an Ann Street, there needs to be some really solid discussion about where parking should happen, especially if we get larger and we have more things going on. So that's one thing. And one thing that I would say that would be a discouraging thing to have the property taken away from Ann, because it may be a potential issue for parking at some point. Just that needs to be addressed. The stop up and close was a little bit of a concern in the sense that with the stop up and close, of course, the roadway will entirely go towards the new properties or the properties that you're looking at subdividing and taking from the space of the park. And the concern with that is that when I was looking up the parking, or pardon me, oh my, words when I get tired, I'm sorry. When you're developing, the planning, there we go. For planning a park, they recommend 2,000, for 1,000 people, 2 acres. And so when we're looking at taking that piece from the front, if you're looking at accessing those homes from the front, then that cuts the park up so that it doesn't make it terribly effective in terms of other activities. The other concern is if you should be turning the homes sideways, so it parallels the park. Again, there's going to be concern about the road, there's going to be concern about the road coming in, the risk factors to the people that live there. I'm almost done, I promise. There's also concern in the sense that Vienna has potential to grow, and a lot of properties that can be developed. And this is the only park that will allow Vienna the opportunity to grow with it. With Vienna, and the other park is not safe. Even though it's wonderful to have it, I'm not suggesting it be gone in any way, but it's dangerous. So I just wanted to, those are my points.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're moving down to section 11, physical services and emergency services. 11.2, reports to council, report BL 0524 by Stephen Miller, bylaw enforcement officer regarding refreshment vehicle licensing.
Thank you, Worship, and good evening, and members of council. Through your worship, the report before you deals with the replacement of the refreshment vehicles bylaw with a more up-to-date regulatory framework. At the April 4th, 2024 regular council meeting, staff sought direction from council on what should be included in a new refreshment vehicle bylaw. That feedback has been incorporated into a draft that's before you this evening. The draft refreshment vehicle bylaw contains the following: 4 different classifications of refreshment vehicle. These are food truck, ice cream truck, stationary food and beverage vendor, and stationary barbecue vendor. Each classification has different requirements. The bylaw includes language that would allow the licensing officer to issue a conditional license if one of the requirements is not able to be met by no fault of the applicant. It includes language that allows the fire chief to designate another member of the fire department for the purposes of inspection should he not be available. This delegated authority would be at the discretion of Chief Baranick and would likely be dependent on the necessary training and certifications. Bylaw contains the ability for the licensing officer to impose additional conditions on a licensee should that be necessary. Similarly, it also contains a framework for the ability to appeal license conditions to the CAO. It contains a requirement for applicants to provide satisfactory criminal record check, including vulnerable sector screening for all owners, operators, and agents. It includes updated language requiring refreshment vehicles operating in connection with a special event to provide identification from liability to the municipality, and to provide a refreshment vehicle information sheet to the chief fire official no later than 14 days in advance of the special event. This is to ensure that the necessary safety precautions are taken with that particular vehicle and the municipality is identified from liability. There's also a draft fees and charges bylaw amendment, which implements a different fee structure for the different classification types of refreshment vehicles. The fee for a food truck, as proposed, remains $500. Staff are proposing a fee of $250 for the subsequent classifications, as inspections would take less time and would be less onerous for the subsequent categories. It should be noted that in contemplation of this bylaw, an interjurisdictional review was conducted. Consultation with the municipality of Trent Hills, municipality of Lambton Shores, and municipality of Central Elgin was undertaken. Thank you. That's all I have. Subject to any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for that presentation, Steve. Does anyone have any questions? Counselor Emerson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 500 for what?
So that would be sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be a $500 licensing fee for an application for the year. The calendar year ends December 31st.
Okay, supplementary.
Yes.
I kind of wonder if the fees are actually high enough and if this is unfair for current businesses to have substantial investment with restaurants and public health. And so like, to me, it seems like unless they were a taxpayer in a municipality, I kind of wonder if these fees are fair in consideration of the investment of restaurants in our towns, actually.
Let's put it on its head. How are these fees comparable to those areas that you were looking at?
In my interjurisdictional review, it was difficult because some of the fees are in different types of bylaws, be it business licensing, not a standalone refreshment vehicle, but these fees are consistent with both Central Elgin and the municipality of Lambton Shores at 500. If council saw fit to, and they were satisfied with the draft refreshment vehicles bylaw, council could opt to direct myself to come back with a different fee structure at a later time, and we could certainly do that.
All right, so revised fee schedule. Madam Clerk?
Through your worship, just to note, a previous municipality that I worked at, the fee for a food truck was $1,000 a year. And just to note that the $500 right now is the current fee in our current bylaw.
Yes.
So through Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that I don't think that those fees are high enough, with the exception of some relief for people that own property or have other businesses in the municipality. I would look for a higher rate with some kind of exemption for local taxpayers.
All right.
Through-
Comment, Stephen?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I will say that there are operating distance requirements from existing business, which are implemented in this new draft. It does preclude operating in general proximity to an existing business that operates the same type of food sales, unless the operation is associated with that business and approvals granted in writing. So that is contemplated in the new bylaw.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick, I don't know if you have these stats and I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you know currently how many food truck licenses the municipality of Bayham has out there?
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I would defer to the clerk for that answer.
For 2024, we have issued one license.
Deputy Mayor?
Supplementary, yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so if there is non-compliance, is the vehicle, whatever it looks like, whether it's a food truck, ice cream truck, whatever, if they do not have a license, is it at your discretion whether they are allowed to operate, or are they immediately cease operation until they are in compliance?
So thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to enforcement, the municipal law enforcement policy is followed with respect to enforcement options. As typically is the case, the emphasis is on voluntary compliance and bringing that business into compliance. However, if compliance cannot be achieved, fines can be levied, summonses can be issued, and ultimately a probation order can be imposed by the Ontario Court of Justice on conviction. So that is a strong deterrent in terms of operating without a license.
Additional questions? Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. when we discussed this before, we were talking about where they would be able to set up their trucks and their locations, whether they be on the road, on municipal property, or they had to be on their own property. Is that been decided how that's going to work?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. I did implement all of council's feedback in the resolution that was put forward as of the April 4th meeting of regular council. They, generally speaking, the requirements are that these operate on commercially zoned property. However, there are specific exemptions for refreshment vehicles that are operating at a special event, and refreshment vehicles that are operating connected with a charitable organization on specifically zoned property, and those zonings would be OS, which would include the beach and parkland, as well as institutionally zoned property, which would be Stratfordville Hall, the fire halls, and any other institutionally zoned property that's operating specifically for charitable purposes.
Additional questions? I appreciate the bylaw in respect that it recognizes, as you say, those special events where an outfit may be operating for 1 day or up to 3 days. And they are outside the bylaw. I appreciate that. Often, as you say, a festival comes along and an operator will move in for the festival and then they're gone. I think the idea of when this was envisioned years ago was to find some way to help offset it, as Councillor Emerson's getting at. The costs that a stationary or a full-time business operating the food service is already paying, as you said, taxes, waters. Well, washrooms, I mentioned that. Yeah, sorry. Okay, and whereas those who are operating these trucks or these temporary businesses aren't subject to saying they aren't paying property taxes. This was just an attempt to try to bring some parity. So they are contributing back to, that's what the licensing fee was. Now, if your argument may be right, maybe it's not high enough, given that this was, my God, 12 years ago or better. Yeah, when it was first brought forward. So maybe it isn't high enough. The $500 fee was then. And it's up to council. But again, this is something that we can discuss through the rates and fees bylaw. I think what we're after tonight is what are you comfortable with how this bylaw for food trucks or whatever is sufficient? Does this meet the needs of what council's envisioning?
Principle.
In principle, that's what we're after. In principle, is it meeting the needs? As you know, bylaws can be tweaked from time to time. But the point is, if this is meeting the needs of what you're looking for, and it covers a broader range than what we were originally, then maybe this is what we should start out with and move forward. And again, if you wish to amend the rates and fee schedule, you can do that. But shall we start here? Deputy Mayor, because I was just about to say I'm getting blank stares.
I
across
got in
the
there.
court here. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a comment, I have no issue with the bylaw. I do like the way it's structured. I'm even all right with the fees. I think education is gonna be our biggest, our biggest hurdle here, because a lot of people aren't even gonna know this exists, so it's gonna be important for communication. And I would hate to see someone put in a lot of work, not realizing that they have to have this permit in place and then be shut down. So again, it's sort of a broader comment, but the way that this bylaw is structured, I have no issue with that.
Thank you for that. Again, this isn't meant to capture the once weekly or wherever lemonade stand out there that the kids are doing. This is to try to recover something from a business. Okay. I'll tell you what, I'll read the motion out here, and if someone's interested, they'll move and second it, and then we'll see where we go. That report BL 0524 regarding the refreshment vehicle licensing be received for information. And that the draft refreshment vehicles bylaw number 2024-033 be approved as presented and brought forward for enactment. And that council approves the updated fees for our 4 classifications of refreshment vehicles. And that the appropriate bylaw to update the refreshment vehicle licensing fees be brought forward for council consideration. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Weiser and Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? And it is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members of council.
Item B, report FR 0324 by Harry Barnick, Fire Chief, regarding the replacement of Tanker 1, joint procurement. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Tonight I'd like to present a proposal that the municipality of Bayham entered into a joint proposal for Malahide and West Elgin with regards to purchasing 3 tanker trucks. If you recall, on October 3rd at a budget meeting, I brought this point forward to replace our tanker down in Port Burwell, which is a 2000 GMC tanker with 1,715 gallons of capacity. The tanker is getting older. She is showing problems almost every year, and I'm placing more and more of my vehicle maintenance on this vehicle just to keep her up and running. But she is up and running, and she did pass her last pumper test. And I apologize for using the females for that. That goes back to my old tradition of where it was brought up. I apologize for that. If you recall, I did propose that there would be a substantial cost saving, as we were led to believe, but that was verbal only. And however, when they came back with the official presentation, that cost savings that was mentioned was no longer in play. That led the 3 chiefs to take it upon ourselves to look elsewhere. And we did. We met with several vendors, some basically representing 2 different companies. And the values were as high as over $1 million for the same vehicle. Ultimately, as I said, commercial emergency equipment company provided the most proper quote for us, and also with the greatest amount of multiple purchase discount. Through this discount, the 3 municipalities together jointly are saving over $100,000, each saving roughly $35,450 by doing this joint purchase. I can tell you that West Elgin has approved it. They approved it last week, and I just got a text from Chief Sparrow, and Malahide has also approved theirs. Having this larger tanker is really important, and standardizing it is also important. What we must what I believe is that when these vehicles are in a cycle, when we're doing a pumper wheel or a tanker shuttle, these vehicles, if they're the same capacity, they will rotate at the same time. When you put a very smaller tanker into that, you'll find that this one also jumping in and starts getting closer, and then you're waiting for water, then you're getting too much water, and it's by having a uniform system is extremely important for fire operations. Subsequently, the bill or the quote that we received was for $738,491.23. And I've spoken to some dealers with regards to what we can get for ours. And unfortunately, she's only in the $15,000 range. As I was told, there's several vehicles of that era already out in the market. And I'm going to be subject to any questions that you have for me.
Thank you, Councilor Emerson.
Through Mr. Mayor. So it was kind of a long story, and I Guess I didn't understand. Do you end up going with canoe then?
Yes, this company does have canoe. So therefore it fits within our budget policy.
Okay. I was just curious if that was still the appropriate way to purchase it. Guess you went outside and tried to procure nothing.
We did, but it gave us also an option to come up with this large discount because even though they're part canoe, they did that separately and then put it into the canoe quote.
Okay.
So it worked out much to our advantage.
Thank you.
Additional questions? I have one. Chief, upon receiving of this new tanker, you're going to station it in Station 1. You're
Mm.
gonna transition Tanker 1, Station 2.
No, your worship.
No.
We're going to position this into, although it's replacing tanker 1, we're going to position it in the Strattonville station, Station 2.
Yes,
The reason for that is that there is no water supply here.
agreed.
We will take the tanker from Station 2, being Strattonville's tanker, and move it down to Port Burwell. I
Which
thought you-
brings the question. You got a new tanker coming into Port Burwell. Why are you taking the other one over to Port Burwell too?
I'm bringing the one from Strattonville down to Port Burwell, so
Yep.
we'll have it down there, because we do need a tanker down there.
Yeah,
I'm just bringing the new one and putting it up in Strattonville because it has more capacity.
you're bringing the new one.
Yes,
Then I've misread it.
I apologize if I,
Nope. Nope, I understand now. I understand what you're getting at. Okay. And the capacity of the one that you're getting,
3,000 gallons.
3,000 gallon versus the 1,700, which
Yes.
is on the current
Yes,
tanker 1. And tanker 2?
is very similar. It's about 1,800, 1,750, 800,
Okay,
1,800.
transition, and current tanker 1 is going to be
The one that we will put up.
surplus.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Because I was reading this wondering, why are you going to put 2 tankers in Port Rural?
No.
Thank you. My apologies. Any other questions? And that solved my confusion. Deputy Mayor,
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Any capacity concerns in Port Burwell?
Through your worship,
Their tank size, I would assume, is not going to change then, correct?
they're going to, the tank size is going to stay the same.
Right.
Eventually, it would be my proposal that when pumper 2 comes available, she has 2,500 gallons on it. It has 25, again, I apologize. It has 2,500 gallons on it. That will be turned into a tanker.
Ah,
So we will,
okay.
we will then put a new pumper into this hole up in Strattonville.
okay. Any other questions? Recognizing, of course, the cost, yes, I was going to say the appreciating cost here. I know that my colleagues over at Malahide they seem satisfied when I spoke to them about it. It's just a long way from $500,000.
Your worship, if I may add that, when we purchased our pumper that we will be getting in a month,
Mhm.
it was 524,000.
Yes.
There was a municipality that hemmed and hawed for 6 months. That municipality, it was $50,000 more in 6 months. They hemmed and hawed for another 6 months. It went up another 50,000. It was 100,000 more when they finally bought it. The exact same pumper that we have coming to Port Burwell. That during that COVID period, that is how crazy prices got. They seem to be leveling off right now, which we're grateful for, but they're not coming back down.
Councilor Pros.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, would you have an idea of the age of pumper trucks in neighboring municipalities? Like, are we way behind? Do we have really old equipment, or are we not too bad?
Well, we're slightly behind. Most of them will retire their equipment at 20 years. We do I'm allowing our tankers to be closer to 25 years. And the reason for that is that I use them as water utility vehicles, but they always make sure that they are pumper tested and improved every year annually so that they can fit on there. But a lot of I know Malahide has a 20-year policy, and I know the bigger cities, they go down to 15 years.
They get a lot more use. the large urban centers. And I think, and I know that council, and I assume they're all struggling with the same notion. Our trucks may be aged, but they haven't got the same wear and tear and mileage on them. And that's where just,
I can
Yeah.
appreciate that, your worship, but at the same time, the technology is also outdating itself.
yes.
And when we use them hard. The pumps run hard.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. When we were releasing one into the wild, so what kind of kickback do you figure you would get on that?
As stated in the report, roughly $15,000. That's it. As I said, there's a lot of those vehicles out there that are there. And that's what I was quoted from a couple of suppliers.
Chief, these vehicles, when they're surplus, where do they usually or typically end up?
We can, Gov Deals is one of the places we can place them on.
Yes, I
As per
know.
our policy. I've seen in the past where I've seen farmers use them for water. I've seen farmers take the units apart and use the chassis and then put one of their own chassis on it. I've also seen some have been, from some municipalities will donate them to third world countries and they're used in third world countries.
That's kind of what I was wondering about. I know that a lot of our used ambulances end up south of the border. I wonder if that's happened to a lot of our emergency vehicles.
Yes, that has happened in the past. But we try to, again, being fiscally responsible, try to get the best dollar we can for our municipality on our service.
Okay, before I call a question, any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you, council. Worship.
The motion to read the report FR 0324 regarding replacement of tanker 1 joint procurement be received for information. And that the council, the corporation of the municipality of Bayham, approve the procurement of 1 maxi metal pumper tanker based on the specifications outlined in the proposal for or from Commercial Emergency Equipment Company in the amount of $738,491.23 plus HST to replace the 2000 pumper tanker currently in service at Station 1, Port Royal. Deputy Mayor Weiser, you'll move that? Councilor Chilcott, second? All in favor? Okay. That's clear. Thank you. Thank you. I know it's a big thought. It really is, guys. I appreciate it. Now over the last 2 years to see what those kind of pricing increases have taken. It's wow. Okay. Part of it is, just as an odd comment, there are not that many manufacturers out there. So it's leading to it. Item C, report PS 0924 by Stephen Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent regarding the East Beach unloading zone and additional signage. Good evening, Steve.
Thank you, your worship. So the staff report before you regarding the East Beach unloading zone. Unfortunately, I wasn't available to attend that meeting, regular council meeting March 21st. However, council was looking for direction on implementing an unloading zone for pedestrian patrons unloading the beach supplies if the parking lots were full and instead of dragging them down the hill. So staff kind of have looked at this in the past. So we've been keeping an eye on it for years. It's been brought to our attention before by people at the beach. However, it's never been a real big issue, brought forward formally, I guess. So anyhow, the report before you, it outlines 3 different locations we looked at. I think the consensus was to utilize Robinson Street at the bottom, at the turnaround along there. So there's some challenging features with this this spot. Number 1 is public safety. So the unloading zone is typically the regular size parking lot. we have a radius down there for turning around and heading back up the hill or entering the parking lots. This general area, at this point is only 7.2 meters. Ontario Traffic Manual recommends 8 meters with a parking lane. At this location, at 7.2, you also have to consider trailers, boats, RVs that come around there, multiple every day. And I utilized our staff to see if it was physically possible to park a car and use our 14-foot utility trailer, and you cannot without jumping on the curb. So on paper, it sounds like it can work. However, there's definitely some safety concerns. Number one, parking on the sidewalk. The sidewalk is adjacent. There's no buffer zone between the sidewalk. So people want to pull on the sidewalk. So we'd have to utilize a safety barrier, put up some reflective postings there. We'd have to mark the roadway. So there's a little bit of cost in this sort of endeavor, thinking if it was even possible. Obviously staff within the report kind of, we're not pushing this. I'd really back away from it. It's just not a safe spot. The big one, even talking to the OPP and in other municipal areas with turnarounds, is if someone's unloading, they pull back out in traffic. On a turn, that's a blind spot. You have to look over your shoulder. You don't look over your shoulder, you have the potential. So the other two spots, one in the west parking lot, so that would be the pier side parking lot. It was mentioned that we have a little maintenance access. There's a spot there where we can sign, people can unload and carry on. Obviously with this section, the biggest problem is it's not on a paved surface, so anybody with accessibility devices would have to travel on a gravel. That's the downfall to this. Obviously cost wise, much cheaper. It's just signage. And this is kind of the same on the east side parking lot. Again, we're on a gravel surface. We'd utilize along the kind of right beside our canteen there, we have a spot, a no parking area. It gets frequently used by elderly drop off for the washroom right now. I notice that almost daily down there that people do stop there. But it is it's quick. They're in and out. There's enough room for 2 cars. Again, we can put signs up and establish that as an unloading zone. It is close to the washroom. It's close to the main beach and the sidewalk there as well. So obviously there's a lot there. The signage is very minimal at both these locations. We thought about the turnaround at the end, but on busy days too, that becomes an issue. If you have people trying to turn and cars are stopped and parked. So without creating any additional space, taking up any parking spaces, these are kind of your spots that we can utilize at this point. So if there's any other questions about this, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you for that report, Steve. Well, I formulate some questions in my head. Does anyone have any questions for the Public Works Manager? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, the spot in front of the cement pad, that's the accessible pad there, is that all, that's all just wheelchair accessible parking? Is there any available parking there? Identical, because it's close to the washroom. So I'm just curious.
That's correct. Through your worship, those spots is our minimum parking requirements for accessibility. So what's there is what's needed for that many spaces in the parking lot. So that is the only paved surface that we have. There is an accessible washroom there as well. We have 1 and then 2 additional. However, people generally want to go to the main building for the washroom.
Steve, from an offload on the west parking lot into the, as you say, the utility spot, should you say, it's a lot closer to a harder or paved surface. If we're talking about wheelchair accessibility, is it possible that, even if you need to, some kind of a mat system to help assist to get onto that concrete pad and then moving forward?
Yeah,
it's shorter is what I'm getting at, rather than on the east side.
That's correct. And part of that, thinking about it, is most accessibility vans unload on the passenger side.
Right.
So the flow of the parking lot as it's signed is to travel around the median and come back. You'd be unloading, you know, and potential sidewalk. If we bring the sidewalk program back, we can add a hard surface. It could only be 2 meters.
Mhm.
That's all it is. Technically, it's a meter to the rope and it's maybe a meter past the rope and you'd actually have a sidewalk if that was something. However, yes, accessible matting is for a slice that size. The provincial park may not have extra pieces.
Well, you see what I'm getting at here.
But yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
trying to think of probably the,
Yeah.
the better solution here that would serve accessibility. It's close, it's not in front of the washrooms, mind you, but get them on that pad or even on the sidewalk system gets them to some of the amenities. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, you mentioned you've kind of been keeping an eye down there. How often do you see people actually doing an unload close to the municipal washrooms? Like, is there any stats on how?
Like I said, I do spend enough time down there. Just with everything going on, weekends, I've been there, a lot of busy days. I don't see very many people unloading. People generally don't come down there, unload, they park. However, those busy days, absolutely, you're gonna get those Sundays, Saturday afternoons, when those parking lots are full. People, however, they still pull up in the parking lot and they unload and they move on. Have we ever dealt with a situation where they're blocking people by doing that? I've never been notified about it, so. You know, it is a little bit of is it even needed?
Thank you.
Additional questions? Comments?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I thought the idea was to encourage people to use the other parking lot, so the situation now is not really dependent on what we're gonna do.
To get them to use Pitt Street, you're saying, the overflow?
Yeah, that was the idea,
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
So like if we're looking at what's happening now, that may not be what happens in the future if we encourage people not to park down there or park at the other lot, right?
I think this was meant as an overflow, like unload here, move on to.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if we look at what's happening now, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to change behavior, right?
We're not, we are trying to encourage them to use the overflow
Mhm.
lot. I mentioned that, and you've mentioned it in a report coming up about signage.
Yes, sorry about that. I didn't mention that in the presentation. Definitely, you know, we don't have the big green signage that a lot of municipal parking lots have. We
Right.
used to have our own municipal ones. They weren't as visible. Most of them have been removed. However, I already have received parking signage for these lots. I do have plans. We're gonna identify we have one there now at Pitt Street. We're gonna put 2 additional ones. And each one of those lots are gonna have, so people know it's a municipal parking lot. What else we can do? There's not a lot of space for signs before Pitt Street. I've assessed those sidewalks. We have to be very careful. We can't mount on hydro poles and it just takes up sidewalk space. So it's hard to, you know, I even thought a large sign coming up to Wellington, coming off the bridge, municipal parking this way. There's a little bit more opportunity there to put maybe, you know, identify the spots at that point. However, at this point, yes, we do have some extra signage that staff's gonna get up here in the next couple weeks and hopefully that'll help direct them down to the Pitt Street, direct them to the Marine Museum.
Right.
Then you have a formalized procedure thing instead of just, well, okay, I'll park here and then we'll just dump people off down at the beach and we can kind of organize the flow a bit, right? I think that was the idea. Comprehensive approach.
That was the intention.
Mhm.
That was the intention, rather than having people cart things from Pitt Street or even side street parking down and through beach, just to provide an opportunity, if you have to, offload here. Take your car and park it somewhere, preferably in a municipal. So, any other comments, questions? So what's your preference? The west side. I would agree with you. West side? Yeah. Drive something Madam Clerk? I think, I appreciate it's desirable if someone needs to use the facility, say, I want to drop them off out there, but, you know, out in front of the washers. Getting them, if they need, or if it's wheelchair requirements, it'll be challenging, particularly the hard surfaces aren't readily available.
It is a busy spot
It is a
with the
busy spot.
canteen, the
Yeah.
food booth operating. There's always people that are stopped there. And
I would say, I think council, you know, you try this. If it doesn't work, we'll
Yep.
know, we'll get told about it.
Yeah.
So let's try it. It's rather try it than not doing anything. All right? Madam? So you slipped it in under the wire, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. The signage, does the signage direct to to alternate municipal parking lots, or is it just a, 15-minute drop zone kind of thing?
yeah, through your worship, these signs will just identify a 5-minute,
Okay.
5-minute stand. That's it. In and out. We don't want to put any longer, or we'll have sightseers and camera is out on the front. So the signage will identify that, and being the west side parking lot, we'll probably have additional signage at the roadway, just identifying there's an unloading zone drop-off area.
Madam Clerk?
Through your worship, just curious, is there needs to be any direction for funding for anything or?
It's identified.
Oh, okay, sorry. So then I have a draft motion that reads that report PS 0924 regarding East Beach unloading zone and additional signage be received for information, and that staff be directed to implement an unloading zone in the West Side Beach parking lot.
Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councilor Emerson. All in favor? Excuse me. Spreading those allergies around? Okay, thank you. And that's carried. Thank you. Item D, report PS 1024 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent regarding additional on-street no parking zones, Fulton Street and Robinson Street. Steve, please.
Thank you, your worship. Let's keep the parking talk going.
This is a no parking zone.
Yes, so this is for no parking. This report, this is something that, again, I've been taking comments. I've been looking at this for a couple years now of different issues. I wanted to see it through multiple events. So obviously we've had lots of concerns over the past of speeding on Fulton Street. We've contacted the county. We were at kind of a standstill that way. Some recent building development has brought additional parking to the street, not only construction, but weekend visits. So there's a bus stop at the top of the hill. I've witnessed it myself. I was out there. I've spent the time trying to see what it's actually like. And there is times where people, again, it's a 6.5 meter, 7 meter wide roadway. It's not recommended to have parking along a roadway on a hill. That's minimum under 8 meters. And this section, unfortunately, it's just not marked. So we can't enforce that at this point. However, I reached out to the county. The county obviously want direction from municipal council. So more tonight is just to be before you guys to recommend that, this might just be something to clean up a little bit, make it a little bit safer for the residents walking the kids up the hill, and even people coming over that hill at the speed sometimes they go. We've seen them where we have skid marks on the road where they've had to slam on the brakes because someone's parked in their lane. So obviously this one, yes, this would go to the county, and the county can make the final decision. The second part of this report was Robinson Street. So Robinson Street, been watching for a while. Recently, we've had a couple bigger issues that have brought more pushed this along. To clarify, we have issues on busy days down at the beach and parking. We just talked about it. And this is the other side of it, is the parking on Robinson Street from Pitt Street. On multiple weekends, multiple events. I have photographs of the cars on the hill, and it's barely wide enough to get up the hill coming from the beach. People are blocking the sidewalk, people are riding on the curve on the west side, all the way up to the lighthouse there. So, recently we had a little bit of an issue with the OPP coming around the corner at Pitt Street with a large truck. We couldn't get them to move. I had no way of getting them to move. We reached out to the contractor, but he wasn't interested. So, OPP in the end, I think, took that one, and they kind of got involved. So this is a 300-meter section of roadway. It is curved on both sides. Again, if staff were to implement no parking zone, our bylaw, there's no amendment to our bylaw. Our bylaw is strictly, if it's signed, it can be enforced. So it makes that part a little bit cleaner. The 14 signs, posts, if we were to go out and buy them, we're looking around $800 for the post signs. Obviously, public works staff would install them. We have probably these signs already in stock, so it's just the cost of posts for these signs. And then further, this again may help, not start the trend of parking on the hill. We have pedestrians walking on the road. I have footage on my camera, on my dash, that have people walking up the road because the sidewalk's blocked. So that's kind of why I brought these two items forward. They're just a little bit of a housekeeping thing. I think that maybe it's time that we look a little bit further into some additional no parking and get people to park where they need to park. So any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Steve. Questions, concerns, comments? Let's move ahead. Okay. All right. I agree. We have a motion that reads report PS 1024 regarding additional on-street no parking zones, Fulton Street and Robinson Street be received for information. And that correspondence be sent to the County of Elgin to consider establishing a no parking zone on Fulton Street between Elm and Snow Street in Vienna. And that a no parking zone be established along Robinson Street from Pitt Street to the East Beach turnaround in Port Burwell. Just for clarification, Steve, we're talking about both sides.
That's correct. Yes.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Chilcott, Counselor Emerson. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to section 12, Development Services, Sustainability and Conservation, 12.1 correspondence, and to receive for information a Mitful. Does anyone want me to read these out? No. Okay, we have several items that are mainly notices of open houses, public meetings, proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Does anyone have any questions regarding any of these notices? Seeing none. Have a mover and seconder for the following, that items 12.1, 1A through M be received for information. Counselor Emerson will move, Counselor Chilcott will second, all in favor. And that is carried. Which brings us to 12.2, reports to council. Report DS 3724 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application of ZBA 1224 Asher, JNC 11-184 Plank Road. Hello again, Mark.
Hello, your worship and council. Okay, this report before you is dealing with a rezoning application, ZBA 1224. Appointed agent Eaton Asher has submitted a rezoning application on behalf of John and Carol Asher to rezone their property at 111-84 Plank Road. Purpose of the bylaw amendment, they are looking to construct a detached garage for personal vehicle storage. The zoning would change from Hamlet Residential HR, because it is in the Hamlet of Eden, to a site-specific Hamlet Residential HR 15 zone to permit this development. There's several sections of the zoning bylaw that requires consideration for relief. Section 42C, permitting the accessory building in the front yard. 42D, closer to the road than the main building. 951, to permit a maximum height of 5.8 meters, whereas 4.5 is required. 9.7, to permit a maximum floor area of 186.9 square meters. And whereas 75 square meters is required. Section 910 to permit a minimum rear yard depth of 2.9 meters, whereas 9 meters is required. Just to touch on this one a bit, the property is backed by the former rail line, now known as the utility corridor. And the property is a pie shape, so there is limitations because of the configuration of the parcel. Section 422(1) to permit a minimum setback of 20 meters from the center line of the county road right-of-way, whereas 26 meters is required. That has been confirmed as acceptable to the county with the Director of Engineering Services. The effect of the bylaw, again, will be to permit the new accessory building. It's a detached garage that they wish to use for personal storage. The public meeting was held on May 2nd, 2024, with the agent as a signed-in attendee and no other written public submissions. So they're seeking permission to construct the garage, as I said, to store their vehicles and other personal storage items. The planner's memorandum is attached, dated May the 29th, and it provides an analysis of the application against the OP and our zoning bylaw. Given the size and location of the detached garage, staff do have concerns with drainage impacts. We would ask that there be a requirement for an engineer grading plan for the property, including the future detached garage required prior to the issuance of the building permit for the garage. It would also be required that the owner indicate any garage eaves, troughs, and downspouts on the building plans to demonstrate that water is directed properly and prior to the issuance of the building permit as well. Staff and planner concur if the application meets the policies. We recommend approval to change the zoning, again, from hamlet residential to a site-specific hamlet residential to provide relief from the zoning bylaw as noted in the purpose and the recommendation to permit the construction of the garage. And I leave it with you, Your Worship, for questions.
Thank you very much, Marg, for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Well, it's interesting. Its location is interesting. Yes.
I would just like to add, Your Worship, one point to the report is that the agent did provide the rendering drawings, which is something quite different than what we're used to seeing, which was quite welcome, actually. It really gives you an idea of what the finished product could look like. So.
Absolutely. I was looking at them during your presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing no further comments and or questions. We have a motion that reads, Report DS 3724 regarding the Asher rezoning application ZBA 1224 be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held May the 2nd, 2024, associated with this application, the agent was the only signed-in attendee. There were no oral presentations and no written submissions received regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on a property located at lots 21 and 22, concession 8, known municipally as 11184 Plank Road from Hamlet Residential HR to site-specific Hamlet Residential HR-15 to permit the development of an accessory detached garage on the subject property for personal vehicles and storage, which requires relief from the following provisions. Section 4.2C to permit an accessory building in the front yard. Section 4.2D to permit an accessory building closer to the street than the main building. Section 9.5.1 to permit a maximum building height of 5.8 meters, whereas 4.5 meters is required. Section 9.7 to permit a maximum floor area of 187 square meters, 168 square meters for the proposed garage, and 18.9 square meters for the existing shed to be relocated, whereas 75 square meters is required. Section 9.10 to permit a minimum rear yard depth of 2.9 meters, whereas 9 meters is required. And section 4.22.1B to permit a minimum setback of 20 meters from the center line of the county road right of way, whereas 26 meters is required. And that zoning bylaw number Z 780/2024 be presented to council for enactment. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Weisler, Councillor Froze will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Report DS 4024 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding temporary use and demolition agreement. That's that Benny or Ben and
Benny.
Martha Weeb.
Benny,
Benny, thank you.
thank you, your worship. So the report before you, Benny and Martha Weeb wish to construct a new dwelling. In so doing, they want to use the existing dwelling on the property. So as we know, we have approved a few of these in the past where they enter into a temporary use and demolition agreement with the municipality to allow them to live in the existing dwelling while constructing the new one. So we have this agreement before you. They will submit the required security deposit to the municipality after the decision is made in their favor, obviously, if you so choose. And I am here for questions.
Thank you very much for that report. Does anyone have any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one planning question, Mark. Is the security deposit is returned when the house that is to be demolished is removed, or once the other property is built?
Through your worship, the security deposit is once everything is complete, meaning they have occupancy of the house and they have demolished the old, removed all debris, the property is clean and done. They get the security deposit back.
Okay. Motion reads, a report DS 4024 regarding the Weeb temporary use and demolition agreement be received, and that bylaw number 2024-035 being a bylaw to authorize an agreement between Benny and Martha Weeb and the Corporation of the Municipality of Bayham be presented for enactment. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Weisler, Councillor Chilcott, all in favor? That's carried. Item C, report DS 4124 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding declared lands as part of the Open Highway System, Part 1, 11R 9348, part of Charles Court. Mark?
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is kind of a tidying up report where we're dealing with part on a reference plan that is at the entrance to the Charles Court Phase 2 subdivision on Elizabeth Street. So we've been approached to pass this bylaw to designate this part as part of the open public highway system. So it's before you for consideration.
Thank you for that report, Marg. Any questions by anyone? It's a technical requirement. When you look at it, it's 1 foot.
Yes. It was placed there in the beginning of time when this subdivision was first contemplated back in 2010, long time ago.
Not
So
quite the beginning of time, but it's close in this regard.
we'll say for subdivision, in the subdivision world, it's a long time ago to have a subdivision.
Okay. Does
That
anyone
is-
have any questions?
No.
Okay. Motion reads a report DS 4124 regarding the declare lands as part of the open public highway system, part of Charles Court be received, and that bylaw number 2024-036 being a bylaw to authorize and to declare lands in the municipality of Bayham as part of the open public highway system, part 1 of 11R 9348, part of Charles Court, be presented for enactment. Mover and seconder, Councillor Emerson, Councillor Froze. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item D, report DS 4524 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding consent applications. E3924 and E4024 Best Line Construction at 11156 Culloden Road.
So the applications before you are applying to create 2 building lots in the hamlet of Corinth, fronting on Culloden Road. The Elgin County Land Division Committee will consider the applications on June the 26th. Planner's memorandum is dated May 29th. It does analyze the applications subject to our official plan and zoning bylaw. We have our standard conditions, and that would include our engineered stormwater management for drainage and grading, our civic numbering signage, survey, cash in lieu, and planner report fee. Other conditions apply regarding a new county road access. Culloden Road is a county road. We would be looking for a drain deposit for reassessment if necessary, a municipal lot assessment for soil capability for a private septic system, and they would be required to install a private well for each of the lots. Staff and municipal planner recommend the support of the consent applications for the creation of 2 residential dwelling lots in the hamlet of Corinth. Again, intensification, more building, and I leave the report with you for any questions.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just looking through the pictures here, trying to get it straight in my head what they're trying to do, and I think I understand it. I think.
It takes a while.
It takes a while. Does anyone have any questions on this consent application? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion that reads, report DS 4524 regarding the consent applications E3924 and E4024 Best Line Construction, Frank Fair, be received. And that council recommend to the Elgin County Land Division Committee that consent applications E3924 and E4024 be granted subject to the following conditions and considerations. 1, that the owner obtain approval from the County of Elgin for road entrance permits for new accesses to the proposed severed parcels A and B. 2, that the owner obtains a municipal lot assessment and provides soil testing results for the proposed severed parcels A and B in accordance with provincial standards for a future septic system. 3, that the owner obtains approval from municipality of Bayham for the installation of a new private well on each of the proposed severed parcels A and B, providing the municipality with water quantity and water quality reports for bacteria and nitrates content for each lot meeting the provincial standards for residential use as a matter of public health and safety. Number 4, that the owner provides an engineered grading, drainage, and stormwater management plan for each of the proposed severed parcels A and B to demonstrate that the severed lands will drain properly to a legal outlet with no negative impacts on the neighboring lands or the road, all to the satisfaction of the municipality of Bayham. Item 5, that the applicant initiate and assume, if required by the municipality, all engineering costs associated with the preparation of a revised assessment schedule for any associated municipal drain in accordance with the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, as amended, with the deposit to be paid in full to the municipality prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. If the deposit does not cover the cost of the revised assessment schedule, the applicant will be billed for any additional costs incurred. Item 6, that the owner pay cash in lieu of parkland fees for each of the proposed severed parcels A and B as required in municipal bylaw number 2020-053. 7, that the owner provides a digital copy of the survey of the subject lands. Item 8, that the owner applies and pays all fees to the municipality with respect to civic addressing signage for each of the proposed severed parcels A and B. And item 9, that the owner provides a planning report fee payable to the municipality of Bayham upon consent conditional approval. Sometimes wonder if you're just getting even with me with all these conditions. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Emerson will move, Councilor Chilcott will second, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. Brings us to section 13, Finance and Administration, 13.1 Correspondence, 13.11 to receive for information. Not as many pieces in this one. Item A, Town of Plimpton, Wyoming regarding ERO postings 019-8462 and 019-8371. Item B, Township of Lake of Bays regarding the request for royal assent of administrative monetary penalty system in the Ontario Building Code Act. C, Elgin County, May 14th, 2024 Council highlights. Item D, Elgin County, May 28th, 2024 County Council highlights. E, swim, drink, fish regarding 2024 Municipality of Bayham Blue Flag Canada application. And F, Municipality of Bayham regarding the Marine Museum grand reopening event. Anyone have any questions? Wish to comment? Wish to recognize? I think we should make a policy that the clerk read all resolutions. All right, the motion reads that items 13.11A through F be received for information. Mover and seconder, Counselor Emerson will move. Counselor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 13.12, requiring action. Item A, Bayham Historical Society regarding the Port Burwell Lighthouse restorations. You were going to speak to this, Madam Clerk? Oh, the deputy clerk's going to speak to this. Oh,
I missed this one.
that's a $20 fee.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Declare, okay,
I was gonna see where you
late
could get it
declaration.
from.
Yeah. Okay, Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So correspondence received by the Bayham Historical Society regarding the lighthouse. So council previously provided direction regarding information on alterations to the lighthouse and some of the options that council has. That's coming back to council on June the 20th. So this information is advocating on behalf of the Historical Society in regards to work on the lighthouse. They would like to see it done in keeping with the intent of the former village of Port Burwell to register the bylaw of the day to designate the lighthouse as a historical feature in the municipality, and to then suggest to council that $60,000, the approximate $60,000 currently in Lighthouse Reserve, be put towards pre-design work. Council has already had discussion on much of this item, which is why there's information coming back to council in approximately 2 weeks. So in light of that, staff recommend receiving this for information purposes.
All right, thank you for that. Any comments, concerns, questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, but just a clarification question to staff. If we receive this for information, will this be referenced in future reports to council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it will not. It's received for information purposes. It's not referenced in light of any alteration efforts or rehabilitation efforts that council chooses to make. The information that will be forthcoming to council is very similar to previous information from earlier this year regarding some of the options and costing that council will have before it, respecting some of the costs. Just to note, the council is still awaiting some of the funds to be able to move forward with the pre-design and design and construction documents work. This is just discussion around some options regarding cladding and the like that will be brought back to council.
Any concern, Deputy Mayor? I think we, the previous correspondence, in my mind, already addressed this, and this is a part which formed part of the basis of council asking for that report. It's coming forward. I'm just, is there something that I'm not understanding or missing that has you concerned?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, not so much. We encourage the public to make comment. The public makes comment, we receive it for information, and we never readdress it when we have the actual conversation. So I'm just, I don't want the perception out there to be that we aren't considering and haven't taken serious the comments here if we're just receiving it for information. But moving forward, we haven't had the actual discussion on what we're doing with the lighthouse. That's coming up.
Yep.
So if this were on June 20th agenda, this would be perfect, but at this point, it's,
Yep.
yeah.
Still, it's valid and it's for information and it's for members of council to carry with them in the consideration. Does that work?
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
Right, and through you, Mr. Mayor, like I'm kind of in agreement with most of the letter anyway, so I do, me personally, I do consider their opinion and use it in all decision making.
Okay. Right. I'll read a motion here and see if people are willing to support it. That the correspondence from the Bayham Historic Society regarding the Port Royal Lighthouse restorations be received for information. Mover and seconder. Councillor Emerson, Councillor Froese. All in favor? And that is carried. Welcome back. 13.2, reports to council. We have a report CAO 2024 by Thomas Thayer, CAO Stop and Front and Close Part 2 of Plan 11R 11164 Fay Street, Port Royal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report comes to council with public comments in regards to a formal stop up and close comment period that the municipality did initiate. So council received report CAO 1124 earlier this year. Passed the motion to deem Part 2 on Plan 11R 11164 surplus the needs of the municipality for purposes of sale to direct sale to landowner. We commenced the comment period for stop up, close, and convey. It's a 21-day period elapsing on Friday, May the 17th of this year. So the notice is attached for council's information. We did receive one comment by a nearby landowner. These comments are also attached and summarized in the report. Generally speaking, the intent of the public comment period is for potentially affected landowners to identify negative or detrimental impacts to their property. Generally speaking, people provide comment in general outside of that. So the comments were sort of threefold, looking at the access, looking at some of the infrastructure in the area, and a comment about use of the property. Generally speaking, this area of Fay Street, servicing 128, 129, 130 Fay has been a seasonal access. If the intent of the landowners is to build a year-round residence, then the road would have to be upgraded to a greater standard at the owner's cost. This is similar to what we've done with other projects where road allowances have been upgraded or extended. It comes at the time of the building permit. With respect to infrastructure, there is partly located on Part 2 a legacy water line that services the abutting landowners, along with the owners of 127 and 128. Staff have met on site and had this discussion, and this has been identified as a line that is aging out and is up for municipal replacement within our existing water department portfolio. There has been discussion of running a new line. So this noted infrastructure, it is noted that infrastructure can exist on private lands. And if it was the intent to have this infrastructure remain, then an easement could be registered for this. This was done when we disposed of a part of the Dennis Road allowance. There's a catch basin that had a maintenance easement associated with it. But in this regard, an easement is unlikely to be required because the line has been identified for replacement and will be moved off that part. Final comment regarding use of the lands. This falls under an order and is in the jurisdiction of municipal staff to address on a complaint basis. As it is by law, it will not be discussed tonight. So before council right now, tonight is a bylaw to formally stop up and close the identified section being Part 2 on Plan 11R 11164. We would bring back a bylaw to formally convey the lands once an agreement of purchase and sale has been prepared and authorized by both parties. Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council for any questions.
Well, thank you for that, Thomas. Any questions? This has been in process for a while. Okay. All right, I'm satisfied. The motion reads that report CAO 2024 regarding the stop up and close, part 2 of Plan 11R 11164 Bay Street. Corporal will be received for information, and a bylaw authorizing the stop up and close of part 2 of Plan 11R 11164 being part of the Bay Street Road allowance. Corporal will be brought forward for council consideration, and that the mayor and the chief administrative officer be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the conveyance of the lands to the abutting landowner. Mover and seconder. Councillor Rose and Councillor Emerson. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, it's carried. Item B, report CAO 2124 by Thomas Thayer, CAO, regarding stop up and close parts 2 and 3 or Plan 11R 10789 Snow Street, Vienna, buildability and street lands.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is twofold. So council did authorize a stop up and close of parts 2 and 3 of Plan 11R 10789 being part of the Snow Street Road Allowance in Vienna. So this was authorized back in January of 2023. At the May meeting in 2023, May 18th, council received a report TR 1123 regarding surplus or duplicate assets. This report in part identified the lands at the northeast corner of the Vienna Community Park as lands potentially available for surplus and sale as developable residential lots. The report at the time did state that the net proceeds of these lands could be used for key strategic ventures such as assisting in the paying down of the remaining Ojibwa principal, allocations to the facilities reserve for any upgrade or restoration of select non-core assets, or allocation to other reserves for capital improvements as identified by council. This was received for information, and direction was provided to report back. So this covers this property that was identified in the report. In accordance with previous council direction, we had a 21-day comment period. This also closed on Friday, May the 17th, 2024. Notice is attached to the report for council's information. So there was a 15-month delay to bring this back to council. We had to clarify title on 2 parcels on the east side of the Snow Street Road Allowance, one of which would have become landlocked if the road allowance had been formally closed. These parcels had legacy ownership attached to them in land titles. So we utilized the services of a pair of solicitors to go through a formal process to have the lands formally vested to us, as we have been maintaining and incurring costs on these lands since probably before amalgamation. So this report is brought forward to council now that that is in place and the municipality has formal ownership of the property, to receive any public comments regarding the stop up and close, and to discuss buildability of certain lands that abut the Snow Street Road Allowance and possibly include a portion of it for purpose of potential residential development. So in support of the public comments, 8 sets were received. These are also attached to this report. The general tone of the comments aligns with council's previous direction to stop up and close Snow Street. So supportive of the stop up and close. Parts 4 and 5 of this plan, if council will recall, were previously deemed surplus and sold in 2022 as the Vienna Community Center. Part 3 of the plan was retained by the municipality and it now comprises a walkway that provides access from Fulton to the playground, pavilion, and multi-use court in the park. And part 2 is the balance of the road allowance, extending south off of Ann towards the Vienna Community Center parking lot. At this time, the municipality has no plans identified in its 10-year capital plan to open and develop this part. The comments are accepting of the stop up and close so long as the abutting lands to the east remain a de facto part of the Vienna Community Park. They're generally unsupportive of any proposed surplus and sale of any lands possibly associated with the park. However, any surplus and sale would then fall under our municipality's sale of surplus municipal lands policy. There would be a comment period attached to that. Respecting buildability, it's worth noting that we've had a lot of staff discussion internally about this particular site. Planning information is included in the report, and for general principles, does quite recommend development of the highest priority be located in urban areas where full municipal services are readily available. So Vienna does qualify. And the plan encourages new residential development to consolidate with the existing settlement areas listed in subsection 4.1, which includes Vienna, by filling in vacant areas and locating new residential development adjacent to existing built-up areas in compact and contiguous fashion. So this land also qualifies. In respect of site-specific zoning information, it is worth noting that the lands in the official plan are designated as residential. These lands are not designated institutional or open space. Following that, in the zoning bylaw, they are designated R1, which is village residential. They are not designated institutional or open space. Therefore, these lands are not part of the park. And when Plan 54 in Vienna was laid out, it was intended that these lands would be residential. They would not be park space. The road allowance being what it is does not have a formal designation or zoning. However, it's worth noting that section 3.8E of the zoning bylaw does provide that in the event that a road is closed, the land of the road allowance shall be included within the zone of the adjoining land on either side. So recognizing that lands on the east side are residential, the road allowance, if closed, will take on a residential zone. The lands on the west half of the road allowance will take on an institutional zone to align with the remainder of the park space. If council does decide at some point to surplus a portion of the road allowance for sale as a residential lot, then a rezoning undertaken by the municipality would have to occur for the west half of the road allowance only. So this has been reviewed by the planning coordinator, and they concur with the information in the report. Would also note that in respect of the parameters for the R1 zone, two parameters are of interest, sections 10.3 and 10.4, which deal with minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage. In Vienna on full services, an R1 zone property shall have a minimum frontage of 15 meters and a minimum lot area of 800 square meters, which is approximately 20 by 40. So based upon the above information, two options are presented in the report should council choose to proceed with the possible residential development of any part of these lands. The first option is lots fronting on Ann Street. So a schematic is attached to the report. Staff have determined that the cumulative frontage of the lands identified in the schematic is approximately 61 meters, which would permit up to 4 lots under an R1 zone, which complies with frontage minimums. With a depth of 53.5 meters, or 3 lots with dimensions 20 by 40 to meet minimum lot area requirements. This, however, must be confirmed first by survey. There is also the possibility of smaller lots on this site, whether by lot area or frontage, but if this is sought by council, then it complicates the municipality-initiated zoning bylaw amendment. These lots will be fully serviced off of Ann Street, and in discussion with the manager of capital projects, servicing could be provided to any proposed lot in this area for approximately $20,000 to $25,000. The value of the parcels of land once serviced can be expected to increase by at least this amount, which means the municipality will likely make back at least its investment per lot if deemed surplus and serviced at some point in the future. The benefit to this option is the relatively low upfront cost to service individual lots, which means that net proceeds of any sale will be cumulatively greater than a scenario with higher upfront costing. Greater net proceeds permits council to better allocate funds to priority ventures, such as the Ojibwa, for instance. A downside, because of the possible orientation of 3 or 4 lots in this area fronting Ann Street, there will be a parcel of land in the southeast of the open space, so behind these lots, but just north of the Vienna Community Center parking lot, that will be bounded on 3 sides by residential with no formal use or plans for upgrade. So it's a bit of a floating area. There may, however, be the possibility with a portion of the net proceeds to set aside some funds to upgrade this area with, for example, a walking path, lighting, benches, and potentially some active recreation functions, such as the installation of adult exercise equipment, which is increasingly common in park spaces. The second option is to stop up and close only part 3 and formally open part 2. So develop Snow Street and establish 4 lots fronting onto the newly opened and established Snow Street. So this is also identified in a schematic attached to the report. If council should choose to do this, the 4 lots already exist and are properly sized in accordance with the zoning bylaw in Vienna Plan 54 along the east side of Snow Street, which could be available for surplus and sale. These lots are 20 by 40 in dimension. They meet minimum frontage, minimum area requirements. A benefit to this option is the municipality will not be creating new lots. The 4 lots already exist. We would however, have to confirm the dimensions through a survey. The downside to this option is the extra upfront cost. So in option 1, servicing is already available along Ann Street, so relatively minimal cost would be incurred. In option 2, services would have to be brought in under the newly established Snow Street on part 2 of the plan, and the road allowance would have to be upgraded to a municipal standard per our design guidelines. The cost for this, based on discussion with staff, is approximately $450,000 to $500,000 and would have to be funded prior to the sale of residential lands. So this decreases the effective net proceeds of sale under this option. As noted in previous treasury reports, there is the possibility of net proceeds of sale going towards strategic council initiatives. Council continues to identify a priority item being the pay down of the Ojibwa loan. So a few items in light of some of council's previous discussion and their strat plan are in this report. One being the Ojibwa, another one being an allocation of the balance of the funding toward the Lighthouse Reserve for design and engineering. Any allocation towards the Facilities Reserve could be used as a top up to the SEC expansion, which is still outstanding if needed. A top up of the Park and Playground Reserve to fund any non-core park upgrades. Or an allocation to the contingency reserve to act as rate stabilization, which might be required in 2025. To reiterate, the 10-year capital plan does not have any further projects identified for these lands. Construction of the multi-use court pavilion, including the provision of hydro, this has been completed to the west. And staff consider the Vienna Community Park to be solely on the western end of the lands, west of Snow Street, and predominantly on the top of the rise where all improvements have occurred to date. There are no foreseeable plans for the eastern portion. In light of this, there is a draft bylaw to formally stop up and close the identified parts being 2 and 3 of Snow Street. The report does not provide a specific recommendation for the stop up and close. If council wants to close up both parts, it can. If it wishes to close up only part 3, we can entertain that as well. And we also don't provide any specific recommendation regarding an option for the Ann Street lands that have been identified. If council chooses to direct staff to return with any additional information, including lot count and orientation, we can do that. Prior to any surplus and formal process, we would need a survey to delineate the lands that would then inform the graphics we would need for a notice period. And then would be registered on title to identify specific parts and have a specific plan number. So there are a few moving pieces. This is really the first step. I'll leave it with council to discuss. If there are any financial questions specifically, the treasurer is also present tonight. Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you.
All right, thank you for that report, Thomas. Let's open it up to questions, discussions. First and foremost, I would have to state that yes, the potential residential lots were something that I guess you could call it, for lack of a better word, a windfall. It's something that was not anticipated. All right. But it's an opportunity just to consider. Councilor Emerson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a windfall that might be, but I'm a little worried that we squander that because we can only sell those lots once.
Yeah.
So I have no opposition to developing the lots or closing up the road allowance per se, except because that will add value to those pieces of property. But we only get to sell that once, and we should think about like declining interest rates we're not in that bad a position in the books. I think lot value goes up faster than the interest rate. So I don't know why, if we need to do some of these projects, we can't develop them, let the lot value go up in place, borrow against that, lever that, and use it to whatever these debt things that we need to do, whichever we decide, a bit Ojibwe or whatever. I kind of philosophically am opposed to selling a lot to pay off the Ojibwe debt. That's like me coming back after a trip to Vegas and selling my farm to pay off my gambling debt. So we could use those lands and lever them properly so that we can finance some of these projects and retain the ownership in the future for when we really, really need the money, like, I don't know, a major pipeline failure or something like that, because I think they will gain in value faster than the interest rate. I mean, I just sold a building, right? And I couldn't have made a better investment than putting it in real estate.
All right. There is a counter argument out there that once perhaps it becomes generally known that there is going to be a major investment or requirement and a burden on perhaps those on the water system regarding the replacement of a pipeline, those values on those lots might actually devalue. So there's a depreciation argument at the same token. With respect to liquidating capital to help pay things off, farm consolidation is a prime example of taking a surplus farmhouse, liquidating it, and turn around paying it against that debt on the farm.
Excuse me.
Careful now.
Yeah.
It's still a comparator.
No, it's not.
Sure it is.
No, because land is permanent, a house depreciates. So you're actually selling the house to pay a longer term asset. That's what I'm saying. That's not the same.
I understand that. But we're in a position coming forward where we need debt capacity. We don't have. So,
Well,
the
that's not
alternative is-
kind of what the financial statement said.
You haven't been paying attention, Council.
Yeah, no, I have. That didn't seem like that was that negative. I don't think we're in as bad as financial, like, I really think sometimes we're bipolar on this. Sometimes we have money, sometimes we don't. Depends on the discussion. So I don't know. And with the interest rate going down and lot values going up, I don't see the urgency to sell the lots. I actually really don't.
Well, how are you gonna make up the shortfall? Because we don't have it in order to pay off the Ojibwa debt. That is a goal that council has set out there. The alternative is, as you say, you either roll it back into some financing, or you hit the levy a little harder.
No,
And
that's
how far
not what
can you
I'm
go?
saying at all.
Well, you tell me an alternative plan, sir.
I just told you an alternative plan. You lever the lots and borrow against them to pay off the sub, and we're money ahead.
A loan is still a loan.
Yep, it's not the same thing. And we still retain ownership. So we pay off that loan and we still own the lots.
But
We
still
sell the
haven't-
lots, we have nothing.
But we still haven't improved our debt carrying capacity.
Yeah, we have, because the
How?
value of the lots is going up faster than the interest rate. That's gonna be on the. We're making money if we retain ownership.
I'm not sure we're in that position. Council. Council Pros.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I would too be in favor of doing the lots off of Ann Street and closing up Snow. I think it's $400,000 up front kind of defeats what the whole goal would be, in my opinion. I think we are in that hard position. We do need the money. And I know interest rates went down yesterday or the day before, but how much farther are they gonna go down, right? What is our borrowing going to cost in a year from now? In March of next year, so I'm kind of in favor of selling them and using the money to pay off the Ojibwa debt.
All right, Counselor, thank you. Comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Stop up and stop up and close is one issue. The second issue, we were talking about the lots and what we were gonna do with them. if we defer that decision, I'm looking at a timeline. I'm just curious because we're looking at March of next year. We've set a goal. We're on a course. We're so close. We just have to keep going. So if these allocated funds can go toward reaching that goal, I would also be in favor of that. However, I'm curious to know, you mentioned that we had an opportunity to get some more information if we wanted. Because we require the surveys, but that's for the 4 lots, correct? But can we move forward on the ends,
Well,
the
it depends.
first option?
I'm sorry, Deputy
Yeah.
Mayor, I shouldn't
Mhm.
jump. Depends on configuration. First of all, solidify in your mind. Do you wish to divest of property that's surplus to the municipality? If you decide it is surplus to the municipality. All right, they never formally were part of the party.
That's correct.
All right, in my mind, that frees it out. If you wish to develop and move them on, then that's one thing to consider. The second one is the configuration. If you wish to do what the original Plan 54 was, which was develop along and/or Snow Street, then you can't stop up and close part 2. You have to develop it. And that's an investment of, as Councilor Rose suggested, upwards of $500,000. If you wish to go with another configuration and develop along Ann Street where the services are, you could theoretically have 4 15-meter lot frontage, which creates, a piece, as Thomas had indicated in his report, a portion of land that would be landlocked behind 3 residential zones or sides, which could then be allocated to parkland. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? So it creates an option of
Yes.
trying to meet 2 different needs out here. One for green space, one for trying to find liquidity to help us move forward with debt retirement. Or whatever else council decides they want to do with it. So the decision has to be made. What configuration makes more sense to you? If council has appetite and wants to do this. That's what I'm getting at. So don't dally on, because we're 10 months. 10 months. And at that time, you still probably will not get those things sold in 10 months. But if they're in process, then you are better equipped to deal with it as it comes in the shorter term.
Just to clarify the worship's point, you're right, it's 10 months. Our investments are all going to be expiring right around the 10th or the 15th of March. Our auditor tonight, who's been our auditor for a long time, said, we have to continue austerity. We're on the final inning of this baseball game, and it has been a terrible 9.5 years debt servicing this debt. But the reality is, without the land sale, you guys don't have the final piece. Unless you're prepared for really large tax increases next year and really challenge the affordability of all our residents.
No, that's only one part of it. The other part of it is, Lauren, you could reinitiate and you could pay down a portion of that payment and still be stuck with a mortgage.
And that is correct, your worship, but to clarify the question of interest rates drop, this is not considered good debt.
No.
This is considered high-risk yield debt, which does not get you the ability to negotiate at a lower market rate. Years ago, when we got the original debt, interest rates were at an all-time low. That's the rate we got. And yes, they moved a quarter yesterday and they might move another quarter. But it's still not going to move it, that it's going to make it more financially viable.
Let's think of it another way. Let's, and this is very crude mathematics because I haven't done the amortization schedules. 2.71, our annual interest payments in 23, I believe, was 122,000. According to the report, 122,000.
Is interest carrying.
All right, we could be looking at 5%. So say double it.
5.8.
And if you wanted, I mean, from just layman's terms, say from 122,000, say it's 220,000.
Easy.
All right, that doesn't include principal payment. You understand what I'm getting at? If you're staying on the same amortization schedule,
You're gonna be adding
you're at the
12 to
four.
15 more years of term.
Yeah.
Which means the taxpayers will pay more.
Or you're into renegotiation of this term debt, which still doesn't get you out from under it.
No.
But the problem is, for 10 years, 9 years, it's been over $330,000 that have been going into a black hole that you don't own.
It's not,
Doesn't benefit the
it's an
community.
asset that does not provide value to the landowners and cannot be charged back. And the other question, we can't borrow against the land. We can only borrow against 25% of our total revenues on our ARL. And we have two callable things coming. We have a water line that when the order comes, won't be a discussion of council and the committee. It will be, we're doing this. Here's the money and the financing we're providing. There won't be a question of how does this fit with our budget? This will be ordered. And the other thing is, we're still continuing trying to improve stormwater in Port Rural. We need some debt capacity when there's another grant program or a program that we can put against it. That's the core capital that has to be replaced. That is not up for really council discussion. It's needed for our residents.
Councilor Chilcott, and then Thomas.
Thank you. So, sorry, I'm going back to the orientation of the lots.
Yes.
So you've got the 4 that are gonna go along Snow Street or 3 that are gonna go along Ann. It's 4 along Ann as well,
You gotta remember.
plus the
road allowance-
landlocked one.
The road allowance is possible to develop. Can you find the map? I'm gonna take you to the page on the map.
It's on, page 219, I believe.
Well, you found it before I did. Good for you. Yeah, that's one. That shows the configuration of, within those blue, that's for development along Ann.
Correct. And then the next page,
Is the development along Snow,
correct.
which is curious because there's still a block in there, which we don't know. We haven't got the correct measurements, but still.
That lot back there is technically, that's municipal property.
Yep.
Yep, that's lot 12 on the plan. The
Yeah.
other ones are 13 through 16.
You got encroachment on it.
Yes.
Okay, so I think what Counselor Froese is saying, and I support what he's saying, if you did the development along Ann, stop up and close part 2. All right?
You get 4, like that's
You
what
get
I was trying to
4
figure out.
crossed, and it
how many.
creates a block in behind to fold into the park.
Right. No, I just thought there was only 3 along Ann, which still makes more sense than doing the 4 because the cost to put them in is much less, right, to get them serviced. So then you would be able to give back some green space as well.
Well, consider this also, maybe that development along Ann might be what you call townhousing or attainable housing. I'm not saying it's the highest and best use for it, but it might be. Still, if you concentrate the servicing from Ann,
Yes,
you don't have the infrastructure.
right, that's what I was getting at, but I thought it was only 3 lots, and I was thinking it was still gonna be less expensive, or you still make more money off the 3 lots than you would the 4, if you have to pay that $400,000 to put the money back, but 4 and 4 is even better.
Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick follow-up to the treasurer's comments that we've talked about stormwater. We've talked about the Port Burwell Secondary, which we know is coming up in a few years. Both of these are in our capital budget currently. The other item that is in our capital budget, and if we start seeing growth come back online, it's going to be something that comes up quicker than not, and that's the wastewater treatment plant.
Right. Counselor Froese.
Counselor Emerson, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
You and I didn't get to go have the fun in Vegas. We just got stuck with the debt.
We can just continue going down the road of selling off our assets.
But the sooner we get them developed, the sooner we have 4 more residents paying taxes.
I just was hoping for a little bit more creativity, but I guess it's not there. So,
And I also would support and CAO's report to save some money to put some benches and stuff in the open space there.
I believe, Councilor Pros, that was always the intention of trying to do something or increase amenities into the park. We just haven't got there yet. I may, in my opinion, if you stop up and close part 2 and allow the configuration as on 219, potential configuration, yeah, I consider that a compromise. It allows for some additional formalized green space to be put into the park. It provides an avenue for securing a financial revenue for capital purpose. And I agree with you, Councilor Emerson. I don't like the idea of liquidating the pay debt. But it's bad debt.
I just think that those lots can be used for something more useful. I just think we're not creating enough in our approach, which has been actually what I think about before I even was on council, what I thought would be as approach to a finance and stuff. But what do I know? I'm just a dumb farmer. So.
Nope, you're entitled to your opinions. Everyone is. Councilor Pros.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To the treasurer, what number did you have in your budget if we were to sell 4 lots off of Van Street? Or in your head?
I would respectfully hope that we can clear net of proceeds above 600,000 at a minimum. I have a number, but I don't want to, that's my floor. But it all depends what the market conditions are when we have our sale. And just to answer the question, a municipality does not make money by holding land. We make money by developing land and bringing assessment on board. And unassessed versus residential assessment is new tax revenue.
Councilor, or excuse me, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just, thank you for the report to staff. I think part of the piece of the puzzle that is interesting is that it's actually deemed residential. It's not institutional or open space. It's not part of the parkland. This is actually deemed residential, and it has access to service. So I do see the benefits of moving forward. So that being said, though, I do have a question, and I just kind of segues off, and I apologize, but I do have a question in regards to our goals of using said funds to pay off the Ojibwa debt. In the event in March, hypothetically speaking, do we have to pay the entire balance in order to get out of this?
The debt is all callable March, as our auditor alluded tonight. March 25th, 2025 is the day we're either wiring the money to TD or beforehand, we're refinancing with a council bylaw with a new term.
Supplementary, just really quick. So just for clarification, it's all or nothing.
That's correct.
There is.
Not true. You can
No.
pay off part of it
Let me
and
finish. The current bylaw and the current debt expires. We would have to enter in a brand new agreement with TD with brand new financing. We could make a wedge payment. We could pay the whole payment. We could pay none of the principal. But council has to direct it, and council also authorized a brand new bylaw, a brand new schedule, and direct staff to start the process of have competitive bids for debt or negotiating directly with TD. The council's strategic goal in their priority is the termination of the debt, which is what we've been working for and what staff have been doing, and the austerity measures and the same measures that the auditor tonight said and has said repeatedly, stay the course. We have debt that we're going to have to use at a cheaper institution from Infrastructure Ontario when the water line comes, when the stormwater, when all the other needs are coming. This is not debt that helps our residents short-term or long-term. This hinders our residents, and has hindered our residents for the last 9.5 years. They pay taxes for something that does not improve their life on a daily basis. And I'm the treasurer who's been here for 10 years and signed that debt. And I hear those calls and I see the struggles of people at the counter and having to work through paying their taxes because they have this burden in their tax bill that doesn't provide them anything. We get rid of the debt, we save them money over the long haul. You guys keep the debt, you kick the can down the road.
Anything further? Thomas?
Just as a final comment, and Lauren can clarify these numbers if I'm off base, but we currently have a placeholder in the 2025 capital budget for 1.1 million towards the Ojibwa. We have in the loan reserve right now, 2.4 million. With the GICs that we currently have rolling over, we're looking at approximately $150,000 in interest. So that means that based on what we have right now, we're sitting at about 3.65 million. We can pay that off, and that's already planned and approved for. We're about 420,000 short. So either we're sitting with $420,000 that we have to then renegotiate with a fee schedule, term and amortization period, or we seek to pay it off. That's the difference right now. It's about 420.
But respectfully and through you, Mr. Mayor, it's like 400,000. We've done a good job scaring everybody on YouTube about $400,000 right now. But, oh, this is gonna be doom and gloom, and that's gonna, and it's not doom and gloom. We could sell one lot. There's unserviced lots for 350,000. What are we planning to sell all that stuff for? We should be hanging on to that stuff. That's just gonna go into general thing, and we're gonna use it for the wrong purpose.
Respectfully, your worship, and I ask a question to all council. Is a municipality's role to hold real estate as speculative investment or provide services to residents?
Maybe, but is it our responsibility to dispose of physical assets and trade them off for something? Okay, the 400,000, but what about the balance? We're just gonna dispose of that money. We're gonna sell the farm to buy a cow. It makes no financial sense. It really doesn't. That's a bad accounting principle. If you farm like that, you'd be broken 10 years.
Well, it seems to me there are a lot of different needs and goals out there, and if there's funds become available to help support some of this stuff, in addition to paying off that debt, is that not a goal? Is that not a good thing? I'm not talking about underwriting levy. I'm talking about capital. Councillor Chilcott.
Thank you. Do we have an estimate as to what each lot would cost for somebody to purchase?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, no. That would be subject to an appraisal, which is subject to surplus, which is first subject to us having an approved survey with lot dimensions. So it's a few steps down in the process. And then it would depend very much on the market conditions at the time.
The reason I ask is Lauren has said his floor would be 680. We need 400 and something. So I'm wondering if selling 2 lots would get us where we needed to be, or do we have to sell all 4?
Just a quick clarification. Yes, Lauren's floor is approximately 600. We need 420. If council can decide ultimately if they want 3 lots, they want 2, if they want 4, that's part of the direction we're looking for tonight. What are you looking to maximize? Ultimately, if you have more lots that fit the zoning criteria, then the chances are your net proceeds are going to be higher. If you have more net proceeds, you can allocate them to other areas, such as the lighthouse, for instance, which is another area that this council has been looking to allocate funds, or parks and playground, or to contingency for rate stabilization, because right now we're looking at potentially another high rate in 2025.
Sorry, I think you misunderstood what I was trying to get to, was if we make 4 lots, can we sell only 2 of them and keep the other 2 and still make what we wanted to do? Like that, is that something we can do, or do we have to sell all 4, is what I'm looking at, right?
If as an example, if you choose that you'd like to look at a survey of 4 lots on Ann Street and you only decide you want to surplus 2, that is council's, that's council's direction.
Thank you.
Like through you, Mr. Mayor, like I'm pro lighthouse, but even that, I wouldn't sell a lot to fix a building. It's just bad business. It's bad business. So
Capital for capital.
it's not the same. I'm sorry. That's not the same. Fixing up a building and buying land, you should sell a house to buy land.
So again, goes back to the argument or the question, is it the municipal business to be land barons? Or is it the municipal business to provide servicing?
No, that's not the question. The question is, are we responsible use of disposable or assets? If we were gonna sell those lots and turn around and put capital into a sewage treatment plant, that's good use of capital. To sell a bunch of real estate and put it into, I don't know, a fire truck or fixing up a building, that's not good use of capital.
Well, I think it's pretty good to get this monkey out of our back.
Your worship, obviously one comment. If it's not a land that is in the 10-year, then it's underutilized
Yeah.
and efficient use of the taxpayers' levy and assets.
All right. I know there's not gonna be agreement around the table, but I'm hearing consensus for. Well, no, let's not even talk about that. We're talking
You have
about,
to survey it.
you gotta be surveyed and everything else. Option 1. Option 1,
That's Ann Street?
yes,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
that's the stop up and close of part 2. And 3. And Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
I know you don't support it, Councilor. At least I would suspect it.
No, I don't trust that we will only sell 1 lot or 2 lot, actually, so I can't support it. I think we'll just use it for our vanity projects.
For our which projects?
Vanity project.
Vanity projects? I'm not gonna ask you to define what that is tonight, because you and I are gonna get into a match, and we don't need to do that. All right. Please do, Madam Clerk.
Draft motion that reads that report CAO 2124 regarding stop up and close parts 2 and 3 of Plan 11R 10789, Snow Street, Vienna / buildability and street lands be received for information. And that a bylaw authorizing the stop up and close of parts 2 and 3 of Plan 11R 10789, Snow Street road allowance be brought forward for council's consideration. And that staff be directed to obtain a survey of the Ann Street lands for further consideration of buildability with 4 lots fronting onto Ann Street.
All right, I need a mover and seconder. Counselor Prose, Counselor Chilcott will second. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right, report CAO 2224 by Thomas Thayer, CAO regarding extension of site plan agreement, John and Jennifer Clausen at 9253 Plank Road, SPA 0621.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very quick report. We've done an extension for John and Jennifer Clausen once. They had reached out to us regarding an extension until May 31st of this year, noting material shortages, which impacted some of the finishing work at their property of 9253 Plank Road. So they did reach out back to the municipality in April to request a further extension. This extension would be in accordance with Section 26 of the site plan agreement. They're seeking an extension until September 20th of 2025. Now, this is a substantial agreement, but in discussion with the applicants, they note that they're likely to have the work done well in advance. They just don't want to come back for a subsequent agreement should there be something that slows them up. They are having difficulty procuring a contractor to finalize the work with the catch basin and the install of the catch basin, confirm grading of the land, which all has to be done prior to the final installation of asphalt. They do note that the plant that they have scheduled to supply asphalt is closed during the winter time. So if they have delays during the spring and summer into the fall, then they are essentially delayed until next spring. So in light of this, in a discussion with the planning coordinator, we have authorized this extension. This has been finalized with the Clausens, so this is already in process. It is provided to council for information purposes.
Thank you for that report. Any questions? I've spoken with the Clausens on this, and it is a material availability issue, unfortunately. I actually seen them in the office the other day, and I assume this is what they were coming for. If there are no, it is unfortunate. It is what it is. But they're being responsible coming forward and trying to extend this agreement out. Having said that, we have a motion that reads a report CAO 2224 regarding the extension of site plan agreement John and Jennifer Clausen at 9253 Plank Road, Stratfordville. Application number SPA 0621 be received for information. We have a mover and second. Councilor Emerson will move. Councilor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Brings us to section 14, the bylaws. There are 11 bylaws. Does anyone need or require or wish to punish me and have me read these bylaws?
I'm tempted.
I know. We can add time to the clock, but we would have to pass a motion in order to extend beyond 11 o'clock. Suffice it to say that there's nothing in these bylaws that will be covered under closed session tonight. So take my word for it. All right. If anyone has any question on the bylaws, please bring them forward. Otherwise, I need a mover and seconder for the following. The bylaw numbers 2024 28. 2024 29, 2024 31, 2024 32, 2024 33, 2024 34, 2024 35, 2024 36, 2024 37, 2024 38, and Z 780 2024 be read first, second, and third time and finally passed. Deputy Mayor Weiser, is that a question or willing to move? Okay, you never asked what happened to 2024 30?
Right.
Okay. Seconder, please. Councilor Pros. All in favor? Okay, that's good. Thank you. The confirming bylaw from the special. We overused it. How dare you? Okay. We are going to be going into an in-camera session. So I need a mover and seconder for the following, that the council do now rise to enter into an in-camera session at 10:23 to discuss confidential item regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, cost recovery, and item B, confidential item regarding sale or disposition of land, a position, plan, procedures, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Demerit points there. Area Street. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Emerson, Councilor Pros. All in favor? That is carried. I need 3 minutes. Good night. Good night.